this type of stuff. It's crazy. Like,
pretty
I remember like old Counter-Strike days, and IRC days where like you do it on Winamp, right? You could do shoutcast or whatever, and you could stream like you could do a radio station, radio.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long time since like those those fucking spam the mics at the end of fucking Counter-Strike and all that. I mean it's still gaming, it's still part of it. Like that's half the fun of like playing like Warzone anyways is because like you have the kill mics, so when you kill somebody they can yell at you. Did you? So it's a super short. So usually like fuck, like it's always like some like bullshit scenario, but it's usually pretty fun.
Did you see where apparently they're doing that in the Teslas, or they're going to?
Yeah, you can do it currently where you can put custom horns.
No, where you can talk.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Cars or whatever.
I don't know.
I was like, holy fuck, that would be the first thing I would turn off. Like, I don't want some asshole behind me screaming at me because I'm driving slow.
Right. I am not a huge fan of that scenario, just because again, like you can be yelled at for dumb stuff, but you can also yell at people for dumb stuff too, and just say dumb shit.
It's kind of cathartic, I guess. Maybe it cuts down on some of the road rage.
Right. Well, and you got people that like the people that own Teslas probably aren't the most road ragey people either right now.
Fair.
So that's probably.
I think that goes one way or the other. Like Series 3 or Model 3 or whatever, I can see that. With like the SUV, once you start getting into like the $80,000 range, then I can see them being like.
It's not gonna be quite as much. I mean, it's a hard scenario to like to tell because you play games and people are just fucking assholes, and you're like, and sometimes I like to be fucking toxic at it too. It's kind of fun.
It's cathartic. It's like relieving or whatever. But
what? It is late. Did they put last? Last starts. It's fine. I just make up names anyways.
This is going to be weird because I'm used to being on the other side of this, like trolling the shit out of people.
You want a beer? I have New Belgium. I have all sorts of random shit.
Yeah, let me take a look.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff around.
Silly glasses are on the way, I think. Yeah, I didn't bring any.
They'll be on there at some point. Don't fucking pretend. I wish yours glasses. I made one that's like upside down too. I don't know where it's at. But yeah,
this exact same screwdriver set.
Yeah, from Harbor Freight.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, Teddy. I don't know if you know Tyler actually.
Is Tiki Tony?
His name is Teddy.
Teddy. Yeah. Well, we did the trike race.
Yeah. So you definitely met Tyler. Now that we say that out loud.
Who's your guest? I'm here almost every week, thank you. But generally I am one of the robots. It's kind of weird because when I'm on, that's dope.
Right, isn't that fucking
that is so sick.
So,
are you going to put that in the back here?
So yeah, it's technically a sticker, but we're going to cut it out. We're going to make a live edge like wood sign to go behind the couch. It'll be fucking rad. So yeah, it's fucking pretty cool.
Sick.
Pretty cool scenario.
Did you show the? Have they seen it?
Well, it's the same logo. That
I know, but the.
And I mean, Kate made this.
I guess they can see it, so when you do it, they can see it.
That camera is significantly better than what I was using before. I had to the first time we did it, I was like, oh shit, we have to change the lighting around and do a bunch of cool shit. It's way bright.
Yeah, it's weird because when I'm on Twitch, and that's actually one of the reasons I went to Twitch, because on Facebook, you can't see anybody talking. You can't, it wouldn't go through and link them together or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just the Facebook people you can see. Plus, it shares it to everybody else in my feed. I'm like,
right.
So my mom would get notifications when I was talking on there and stuff. So I went to Twitch. But then you only see some of the people. So the YouTube stuff, for example,
it should share between YouTube and Twitch.
Okay.
So the way that the bot works is you can do it on it can't. The only thing it can't post on is Facebook.
Yeah.
Everything else it can post on. So it should have everything. So I wish these were still glow in the dark, but they were kind of a week old at this point. So.
Yeah, it's weird seeing that because I don't know if this was. Maybe it was. When you were doing them outside last summer, did you also were you setting up the TV to do them?
I have a different TV that I set up, but it's like fucking old as dirt.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of a weird experience. It's like being a robot.
So
and then, I got a body.
Right. I think the last time you were here, we had it set up pretty much like this, but again, like the camera's way better.
I agree with that statement.
I mean, it's still a pretty good.
Necessary.
Yeah,
to me it's necessary. Like, I don't know, my friends that don't have a Facebook, it is a giant pain in the ass to coordinate stuff with them now because everybody else is on Facebook. So it's easy. Like, if I want to hang out with people, I just create a group, like a Facebook group or event or whatever, and I invite everybody, and they can see it. We can coordinate it. But then there's always like one or two people that don't have it. And then it's a giant pain, like onesie-twosie.
Right, I think that's kind of one of those things where you just like...
just have an account that's anonymous, and like that's all you use it for
you just only for that scenario.
Then don't post pictures or whatever.
Yeah, don't like anything, don't do anything, so you don't get no feed.
Just purely for the events and stuff, I think it's useful. Because it's one of the best, like short of doing Meetup, which is weird to do with your friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the scheduling. It's just having a schedule anyways. Like, nobody wants to fucking go their, like, their Google Calendar or their Outlook calendar. Like, you'll never get it.
You don't have the conversation or the dialogue either,
which
is important. Like,
especially when you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Or, like, who's doing what. Like,
I have it, like, I use it, like, occasionally. Like, I just scroll through it and I find, like, and most of the stuff that I like on there is, like, events or, like, event places, those kind of places.
They're going to get they would have my information whether I had a Facebook.
Right. Well, and that's something that I also like. Care. The way that that my online life is, where it's like everything is kind of already out there, and I kind of want more people to see it, which is a weird thing to say.
It's like an inverse.
Right. Like I'm trying to like do it a different scenario, and we get we don't get too many random Facebook commenters, but I get some watchers out of it every once in a while. So like. And I'm almost to the point where I can monetize my streams on Facebook. I
mean, that's how I do. I mean, I knew you were doing it, but that's what initially how I started watching.
Yeah.
I just saw it showed up on my feed. And I was like,
Yeah, so it works out pretty nice that way.
And then I moved to Twitch, just because it's a lot. It's designed for this type.
Right. It is the other one that I use a lot that I like is Trovo. So it's which is funny because it's owned by Tencent. It's like their streaming service to their, but they have the biggest problem that I have with Twitch is that I will never sign one of their agreements because they have basically rights on everything you do.
Oh, they own the content. That's
so they own your marketing, your merchandise, your all that stuff. Technically, they can if you
they could use if you agreed, then they could use your logo on their promotional content.
And things like that where I'm like, no, I don't really want that scenario. I'll still stream on it, but I'll never sign the agreement. Whereas Trovo doesn't give a fuck. They just pay you. They're like, whatever, we don't care.
Yeah, because they want the viewers.
Right, and the thing is with Facebook, obviously they already have, all that stuff. And their agreements are pretty lax also. Just because they want more people to do it on their platform. Yeah,
I mean that's not their business model, right? Their business model is to get people to spend time on the platform so that they digest ads.
Right. So and that's kind of the thing. Whereas plus the complete unskippable ads on Twitch is kind of bullshit unless you subscribe, and then until you become an affiliate, you can't subscribe. You can't. So you always get the ads, and you so it's cool. I get nothing out of the ads. Even though they're people are watching on my platform and that kind of stuff. They don't care about the fucking ads. So that's what's nice about the Trovo and with Facebook is you don't have midline ads all the time. Mm-hmm. Now once it's a video, then there is ads, but then you can easily skip through them and do the thing. So I have what do you want to smoke? I have lots of flavors. What kind?
Yeah, let's see. What do you like? What is this? Oh, you have blueberry, kiwi, cinnamon. Blueberry, cinnamon.
Well, it's cinnamon gum.
Oh,
that's that one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
fresh flavor.
Yeah, fresh is weird, but I really like it. So smells good, tastes good.
Like shampoo that I love. Has that
It has that lofty shampoo.
Yeah,
I get you on that one. I got 2 apple, which I'm sure you.
Yeah,
remember.
I'm good with
whatever.
Cool.
And we'll just grab some stuff and we'll make a.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's up with the balloons?
Well, the reason why that stuff was over here is my sister and Dan, both my sisters are over here actually, and they're the colors are, I guess, my sister's like high school colors, and she graduated high school in like a couple weeks. So when they were over here last week, we went to Music City and got to eat there actually, which is kind of cool. They actually had like seating.
Did they open it up?
It's like slightly open, like the bar is still not open.
I see.
But
I
like a table and like have a beer.
I really like, so they do like the Comrade Crunch or whatever, I think it's called. So it's like it's a White Russian, but then they put cereal in it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch or whatever.
I can't do the White Russian anymore. So
I don't like regular White Russians, but with the Cinnamon Toast Crunch for some reason.
See, I just like Colorado Bulldogs.
What's a Colorado?
It's the White Russian with Coke on top.
Oh.
But I can't have the White Russian at all
Yeah.
because of the fucking black tardy.
Yeah, this one, I just like it because it's like eating cereal. Like they give you a spoon. And,
Yeah, I mean, Music City is like my favorite place, but it fucking ruins me every time I eat it. So
Yep.
I just can't.
I'm there.
Again, like the black tardy scenario, they have to use like butter in their shit, but it's so fucking good. And like if I'm like, okay, I'll destroy myself today, and that's kind of where I go with that one.
I've gotten. Because we've moved since in the past year, right? So now we're in Timnath, and like we'll order, and usually like we'll order and then I leave, right? And the order system, like it takes a couple minutes to say when your order is going to be ready or whatever.
Right.
And because it's like so short, normally like we order and then I take off. Every once in a while, I'll get like right over the bridge on the 25, and then I get the email and it's like hour and a half wait. Like they're doing a special event because a lot of the time they'll like donate their revenue or whatever. So they'll get these crazy lines. So then I have like an hour and a half where I'm just like.
Right. I mean,
and then I get home at like 10. One time I got home and like I ordered food, drove over, and by the time I got back, like everybody was asleep. So
yeah, it's just kind of.
I mean, they're popular. Have you had the dumplings that the owner did?
No, I miss I really miss like getting a hot mess like brunch. Like that was like the jam. Get a couple of mimosas and fucking.
That's like the Fireball syrup, maple syrup or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like an egg and then like a chicken strip and then like the waffles and then the syrup on top. I miss that like sitting there, like sitting in the bar, like, getting there like on like a Saturday morning, you get all fucking hammered, like just stay hammered all day. And then I kind of miss that scenario of like day drinking.
The oil they use is so good. Whatever, like, their seasoning is, like, on point. Admittedly, I like the Backyard Bird chicken better, though. Like, the actual, like, the cook and, like, the quality of the meat itself, I like Backyard Bird better. The price and, like, the seasoning, though, to me, is, and, like, the quantity of food is far superior for Music City, which means, so, we get both. But we'll still drive, even though like Backyard Bird's like 2 minutes away. I can I'll walk to Backyard Bird.
I like how you start with the rollerblade scenario. I'm like, I'm totally down for the fruit booting around. That's kind of my jam.
I fucking love rollerblading.
We went last Saturday. We went.
You rollerblade?
Yeah, we went.
I saw a picture.
Yeah, we went to Rollerland. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I played soccer a lot, and I really fucked my legs up. So somebody kicked me in my Achilles tendon, and I also tore a meniscus in both my knees. And then I had like the Oscar Schlatters, like growing pains or whatever, and it was all at the same time. And I basically had to learn how to walk again.
That sucks. But I mean, I've been in that boat as an adult, so like I couldn't imagine as a child.
Yeah. So what I did though, what I do is I wear rollerblades, and I haven't smoked hookah since the last time I was here. a very refreshing.
Right. Well,
experience.
like that first time you came, like you were like, you should like share. I was like, I didn't know that you smoked hookah.
Yeah.
So
well, we didn't even talk about it until I was leaving. So, anyways, I'd wear rollerblades, and what it did is it prevented. I wasn't impact loading my knee because when you're rollerblading, you're not impact loading, right?
Right.
I let my meniscus heal.
Yeah, but
it slowly, kind of got better, and it also helped with stretching out my Achilles tendon.
Right.
And the impact loading reduction also helped with my knees.
I just did it too much as a preteen when I was in that growing scenario because for a long time all I did was rollerblade around every fucking where. And it definitely I'm pretty sure my ankles are a little bit more fucked up because I did that during that wrong time of the.
That's when I did it too. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I feel it. My ankles roll really easily.
Mine's the same way. I have these braces that I put on there when I go trail running or whatever.
But at the same time, I feel that in some ways, I feel more nimble as a result. Also, just spinning and
moving around
tight areas and things. I feel like I'm really kind of good at navigating that.
I would agree with that scenario too, because working at the shop when you're in a weird area and you're fucking doing weird shit in the engine compartments.
I'll use my feet a lot more, kind of sliding around or whatever.
But yeah, I definitely have the weak ankles because of those scenarios. Plus breaking my legs did not help that at all. But
doesn't help
whereas I have a permanently fucking sprained left ankle. You can see it in these shoes. You can see how much thicker my left ankle is.
Those are your birthday shoes, right?
Yeah, I bought these in February. Yeah, they're fucking rad. I've only worn them a couple times. Last time I wore them, we did the podcast. I think it was last week, and then we walked home.
In the dark.
Because we couldn't get a lift, and it was we were pretty hammered. And I was well, it's kind of nice outside. It's a little damp, but whatever. But they made it out okay without being all fucked up. So
yeah, all my shoes are fucked up. No, I haven't bought shoes in years now. And 2020 for me was just
you didn't go fucking anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I bought
I forget too. Do you do that? I feel when I remember things, I'll be talking to somebody oh, that was a year ago, right? And then they're that was 2 fucking years ago when that happened.
I have the memory of
I just forget. It's almost that didn't exist. That year just completely.
Yeah, I mean, I had so much shit happen in 2020 that was super negative. My pandemic started with
I feel it's trauma. The whole year.
Right. So I didn't have that. Luckily, I didn't have anybody fucking go down because of COVID or any of that kind of stuff. But there was I had 3 friends fucking pass away in the middle of it from random ass shit. It started with a super traumatic experience where somebody tried to commit suicide in front of me and that kind of shit, and I was fuck. And then so now I'm finally getting over that mental I've been sluggish for so fucking long that I'm and I got fat, which always hurts my mentality too, because I'm want to ride my bike, want to fucking do all this shit.
I think that to me that's not, at least for you, an issue though, right? Because your habits and your
right. Well, so what sucks about that is my natural state is not working out. My natural state is to be a fat fuck.
But I also look at you have a lot of friends that are also really into doing sports and athletic activities, so you'll naturally be
once everybody starts doing that stuff again, it'll be a little easier. A big reason why I took my current job is that I could ride my bike to work, and now that I haven't gone to work, those daily rides were a big thing where you get up, ride my bike 8 miles, and then maybe run during the fucking lunch just to keep my fucking energy level up, and then ride home. And I just didn't have any of that. I was because I only thought I was going to work from home for 2 or 3 weeks. Right. And then I'm then it goes back into bikes. And then it was oh, now I'm just in this habit of fucking being in my natural state, which is do fuck all. Drink beer, play video games, work, and that kind of stuff. And when you're sitting here, I'm super fucking tired of staring at these. These 3 monitors are fucking dope as fuck. But I'm tired of staring at I'm so tired of staring at it. And sitting in this chair, I bought a different one in the middle of it, luckily. So, because the first one I had was one of those cheap gaming chairs. Right. And it was oh, that's cool for when I'm sitting there for a couple hours every night or whatever. But now that I have to sit here for a while.
Do you think they're gonna try to move people back to office, or
Well,
are they just going to keep everybody working
So
from
no,
home?
there's people that work at the office now.
I think I'm assuming it's kind of like an at-will sort of a thing.
Right, like if you really wanted to,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff, like
But I'm
you
just
could.
curious. That's what I'm curious is if now they've proven like, and I think Dan and I were talking about this at the very beginning, like all the IT infrastructure, like IT busted its ass to make sure the infrastructure was there for everyone to work from home. So these companies have invested so heavily in that, and the morale of the employees is probably, I mean, COVID aside, higher because they are working from home.
Yeah, it really kind of depends.
Curious, like, it's going to be interesting if they try to force people
Right.
back, what that's going to look
My
like.
company said, "Fuck it, do what you want to do," is what they basically said. So like, I thought like for a while there, like I was like, well, I'll get my spot at the office back, and then I'll just go in. Like my job's not customer facing, so I can kind of do it whenever. As long as I can kind of
That's
like.
actually the worst decision for them to make. And the reason I say that, so when I was at Seagate, I was a manager. Because what that basically means is that all the individual managers now have to make that decision. So they basically said, we don't want to be the ones to like shoot ourselves in the foot at a corporate level.
Right.
But at the manager level, like if your team needs to come in, the manager gets to be the one to like crucify themselves and say like, we really need.
Right.
And
So
in that case, like even if like the team really did like work better in person, if he says that like, hey, you guys need to start coming in after a year, that's going to cause some issues probably, especially if the team doesn't want to.
For the most part, like most of our teams, like they work they're pretty integrated as it is. They have to like ask and do things, and
in IT it's a little bit like in your role that's very different, and actually with your company that's very different. But I could see like, you know, if you work more of a standard office job,
right?
Even like in engineering, like
engineering helps a lot because like you have that cohesion together to like to create something. Whereas mine's like I don't really have a lot of like creation in my job. Mine's like a lot of like I help a lot of people. You know, I help literally every single person.
You're ticket based, right?
Yes and no. Okay. So like I have like and recently like my shit's changed a little bit more. So like I even do like support tickets that go to like the support portal, that's pretty recent for me. But then like I have like my to dos, and I'm the only person that's worked out of my queue for 3 years as it is. So it wasn't that big of a change for me. It just now I can just like during the day I pay attention to my chat or whatever if somebody like has a question.
It just gives you more
I'll answer the stuff, and then like when like I'm not sleeping, which is like midnight to 6 in the morning, because my natural sleep cycle is about 6 in the morning to about noon. So if like I want to work in the middle of the morning when nobody else is awake, I get tons of shit done. I can just plow through work. And what would normally take me that 8-hour day, just because I had chats in the middle, now I can spend, maybe a couple hours during the day, and then I spend 4 hours in the morning. So I effectively work less because I don't get stopped in the middle of my project.
I used to hate when people would show up. Like if I'm in the middle of something and somebody walks up behind you, and like you've got your headphones on, or whatever, you go and you're like zoned in, right?
And you're just cranking through that work.
Somebody shows up and wants to like make small talk with you.
Yeah,
like, that for me that happened a lot. But I also was in more of a social, like I had to walk around and like talk to a bunch of people and stuff, and like so there was this like welcoming, like talk to me kind of a thing.
See, and I like that scenario because like I am so extroverted and that kind of stuff. Like what sucks about like my current position is like I am so like kind of like isolated in what I do. Mm-hmm. So like unless somebody needs my help,
carbon fiber.
Yeah, it's a stainless steel lined carbon fiber. I don't know if you've met Wingate.
You were telling me is that your friend that.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast several times, but he made this hose is really old now, but he made it washable and all that stuff, and like there's a bullet in the end of that one, and it's pretty cool little deal. He's supposed to be making me another one. He was waiting on hose the last time that I talked to him about it.
That's sick.
But he hasn't made any in years, so like we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, he used to make all of the hoses. Like the hoses I have over there is one that he made. Like almost everything that I use. I have a couple of like cool like hoses that came with the hookahs. Like the one that came with this one. So this hookah actually was brought to me by a Saudi.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's not is the base because he broke the base on the flight here. But this hookah came from Saudi, and then the hose that came with it's really nice. But it's again like the standard Kali Mamoon where it's like it will destroy itself over time.
Right.
And then I have another one that like another side brought me that's like camel skin.
Oh,
it's
what?
fucking it feels really odd, like, but it's really cool, and it's all dyed blue and stuff. I think I have them in here actually. Let me go.
One of the things that I've always kind of appreciated about like water pipes is just the art.
Right. As you can get some really cool designs and stuff.
Yeah, it's more.
So this is the one that
it's more of an experience.
That came with this one. So it's just pretty standard, but it's a really nice one. And I just don't use it just because they just tear themselves up the way that they're designed inside. Mm-hmm. They don't really like take well. But this one, this is the
I've never owned a water pipe. And generally, when you go to if you go to a hookah bar,
you feel like
that's
it's a little bit right now, but yeah, it's that's actual camel leather on that. It's the same design as that. It just has a cool handle that was
the
maybe
when you go to a hookah bar, they're always
plastic and bullshit.
Yeah, they're ripped to shreds.
Well, and that was the benefit when the hookah bar that we used to go to all the time, Normal Nights, these are all the hoses that were made for that, which is made by the same guy that did those. So we got lucky, and I remember this was a lot larger than the internals of those ones too. Mm-hmm. So this is the biggest set that he ever made. But I remember the very first time that that he made a larger one, because most of them are 3/8 in diameter. This one's a 1/2 inch diameter all the way through. But he made a 7/16 for me that got fucking stolen out of a backpack that I had. But I remember the first time I brought that to a hookah bar, they're like, "What the fuck is this shit?" And I'm like, "Fucking try it." And he was like,
"Do you bring your own hose to the?"
I don't go to the hookah bar too much anymore. It's been. I guess
you can just go here, you can just hang out at home.
Right. I really like the hookah bar mentality,
the social experience.
Right.
You're sitting there, the nice plush couch.
And I know the owners of the one that's down the street over here, and they're really cool to me. We have a good time when we're in there. They let us drink in there too, which they shouldn't, but we have a good time in that scenario. I do miss that aspect where I would just didn't matter what time of day it was or whatever, and if I was bored, just fucking roll down there.
If you got an hour or two to go and chill
and just hang out with friends and and most of my current friends came out of the hookah bar scenario.
It's funny because that's my memory of hookah is just saying hey, what are you up to? Nothing. Want to go just hang out.
And I was lucky enough that I
would good,
walk in there and
it's like this actually. You just kind of get together, you're sitting around.
Out. No, here's the thing. I kind of wish that we had more of a forethought on doing it, because we could have started doing it then. Because again, all we're all in their fucking 20s, that kind of shit. And podcasting was starting, but nobody was oh, we need to fucking do that. Now I'm man, I wish we it was always this fucking stupid dumb bullshit all the time. But I mean, half the people that I know either worked at the hookah bar or I met at the hookah bar. I mean, Travis, I didn't know at the hookah bar, but, he came in there with Seth. And I knew Seth from the hookah bar. Kate, I knew, Sarah used to work at the hookah bar. So, there's tons and tons of people that I can, pull out of the deal. I knew Jack before the hookah bar. I knew Teddy before the hookah bar, but,
Who's Tiki?
That's Teddy.
Teddy.
Yeah. So, I knew them before the hookah bar, but, it was kind of, because of that, too, because when we met Jack, it was because, of our friend that we met at a hookah bar. And now he's, I talk to that kid fucking almost every day. Mm-hmm. So, it's one of those, scenarios where, the hookah bar made my friends. And I have plenty of friends outside of it, don't get me wrong, from racing toy cars and having the shop.
Well, I mean, through stuff, too.
Right. So, and, that's, I know you guys from that scenario, but, and that was just kind of a, luckily,
That was a weird thing because we knew each other for a year before I even, or longer than that, years before I even talked to you, really.
Right. I just remember that first time that we were there was a LAN party, but there wasn't that many people there. Yeah. And then Amanda's computer had broke the pump died.
The water cooler died.
Yeah, and we were we're all drunk trying to figure it out, and then
Amanda
was it was, then Amanda was are you guys
and
bonding right now?
Are you guys are breaking my computer more together, and you're becoming friends over it. That's what I remember.
Right, and it's kind of crazy. That's that's only been 3 years ago now too. It hasn't really been
that's
that
the thing,
long.
Though. So that's 3 years, but we knew each other for we've known each other for like 6
right.
or longer. We just never.
Yeah,
talked.
it wasn't
like you'd go to LAN parties. We'd go to LAN parties. We'd say hi or whatever. But
right. Well, and I think that's kind of like, especially at the time too. I think you were like a little bit more like on the reserve scale.
There's also it's just a lot of people. Like, and I didn't really know. I only knew like Nick and Ashley.
Right.
And really, we met Nick and Ashley through Donnie, sort of.
Okay.
And shit, I don't even remember how this happened. I think Amanda met Donnie and Nick through astronomy because she was going to take a class at Front Range or whatever, and she met them there, and then.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how like it all comes like around and like how we do have similar interests and that kind of stuff. It worked out pretty well for us as friends like now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird, like, because like the only reason why I was there is because Nick knew my friend Keith, who then knew my brother-in-law Dan. They're like best friends, and so like he was like, hey, like we're at a LAN party, and that's how I met. Came into the boat was like to do that scenario because I didn't know them any other way, and it just worked out that like we all like were fucking silly old people. So so like like it's one like we're all just like. Make fun of the world, and that's just kind of how it works.
I think it's kind of funny that so we still do LAN parties. I wonder like what teenagers or like people in their early 20s that are gamers think of that we get together and like
right. I mean,
because that's a weird thing, right? That's something that's really from kind of our generation. I think was like let's all bring our computers over to somebody's house.
So we used to do that like at the hookah bar. We'd bring our laptops and do the thing, and then like we like.
But that's a generation.
Then everybody got old enough to drink.
Like, there was a narrow period of time I think where like the internet fucking sucked, or games only supported local,
right?
Like a LAN.
So I mean, I remember like LAN parties like when I was like because. Like Teddy, like when we started becoming friends, like I like our buddy Paul. You might have met Paul. He's been here also, but Paul, like I knew Paul like from way back in the day, like, and we kind of met him randomly too, because like my cousin's sister was in Girl Scouts and his sister was in Girl Scouts, and then like we were racing toy cars, and then like oh I know those people, so then we became friends, and that's how I met Teddy. This is like 2002 or 3. And, we were all just young kids at the time. And then we used to, I used to build, computers so, everybody could play with the scenario. It's like, I had made sure my brother had one. I made sure fucking whoever else wanted to play had one. And we'd go to, I missed the LAN centers around town, too.
That was also, for me, when I was kind of not doing LAN parties anymore as much, that started to... take over.
Right. I really miss the internet cafe scenario, where a LAN center and all that.
Not everybody had good internet either.
Right.
So you go to people would go in to check their email and stuff.
Well, and I think that's one of those things that will come back into play because when you can put into especially now with gaming as popular as it is it's not a niche market anymore.
You need a high end.
Right.
For certain games you'll want a high end.
So
PC or whatever.
Get a bunch of 3070s and stuff and set up a whole thing. And I think that's something that that I want to build in the future. There's a few other things I've been thinking about my future and what I want to do. And that's part of it where I'm I want to build that because I miss that and I think there's a market for it if you do the right things.
I'm casually checking out.
It's still waiting for a 3080 and when they become available. But it's got a 1080 Ti in it. It's got a 3900X 12 core.
Go find somebody that minds.
I'm just kind of I'm on the wait list until unless this fucking crypto boom comes down, which I don't really think it's going to right now. We're kind of just stuck in this queue system as gamers, which kind of sucks. But I have $800 sitting in a bank account ready to buy it. So,
well, if it crashes, there'll be a lot of them on the market.
Yeah, then I'll get a couple of them, and then I'll have for the next time it fucking burns up or whatever. But yeah, I'm ready for I want to build something like that and throw tournaments and have it available to my friends where it's come fucking if we want to do LAN party, we'll close it down to everybody else. We'll have our own kind of shit.
I don't know. I just think about it who 23-year-olds or younger they probably don't even consider that as like a thing. Like, we're gonna bring all our computers and wire them all together. Hopefully somebody has like a switch or a hub that can support all the people, or the let alone the bandwidth.
I mean, look at that stuff is like cheap these days. Like,
oh, it's well, you go to the recycling center and you can get like, you know, a 24-port hub that'll work perfectly fine. I just remember like somebody would be like transferring like files.
Oh,
and like completely like murdering the network, and you're like trying to find out who it is, and
especially back in like the back in the day, like
then
when
you go like if you're like on a 10100, like that'll saturate pretty quick,
right?
And then
I mean, we were doing that. Like we were doing that at Nick's house. Like I think we were like, I think it was David like didn't have GTA downloaded. We wanted to play GTA, so he was like copying that stuff. But then underneath the table, we had the fucking a 10 base T, just 10. It wasn't even 100, and I was like, this is not gonna fucking work. Because the game is fucking... I mean, the thing is, games are huge, too. Like, I remember, like, you know, like, Battlefield 2 days, like, you download the patches for that, and they were, like, 50, 60 megs, and you're like, cool, now I can't play for, like, 3 hours, and now I'm, like, with my internet, I'm, like...
Everybody waits. We're, like, the LAN party, most of the LAN party's waiting for people to download the games or whatever. Well, so you'd say, like, or people would copy them, right? And you do, like, a CD or, like, an external hard drive and carry it around to install
stuff. What's up, Eric? Yeah, I mean, that's... I miss those days a lot, and it's... I still think there's a market for it if you do it the right way.
I like the nostalgia factor. I think it's fun, because I think it makes the gaming more social.
Right. It's super more social, and like I know, like, Nick and
being
Ashley...
Being able to, like... There's a... Screaming at somebody in a mic and trolling them versus, like, legitimately standing up and, like, throwing shit at somebody, or, like...
all the fucking time.
Going over and, like... unplugging somebody's monitor, or like switching their mouse to left-handed or whatever. Like, there's so many like little... I mean, it's the same as a regular party. It's just a nerdy version where like there's shenanigans and like, or somebody falls asleep and you fuck with their shit, or you know. You know,
as we got older, like I remember like Nick and Ashley used to get so pissed about the fucking like we get all drunk at their LAN parties and like barely play games, but we'd be having a ball of a time.
Like taking... My favorite would always be like take a screenshot of their desktop and then hide everything.
Oh, definitely.
So just like,
I mean, it's crazy. Like, you know, like with our friends, like we're all technical enough, we know what to do. But like, you get those people that don't really know what they're doing, and you flip their monitor, so it's like
inverted, or whatever, or change the keyboard layout. That was always change it to like
Dorvik or something.
That's always a fun one.
Yeah, it's always super fun. Like,
or like a passive one, like change it to like a OS X or like Mac OS one, where like just a couple of the keys are slightly different.
Right,
like control doesn't work or whatever.
Yeah, it's just one of those like things that were like super nice. Like I miss like, I mean, honestly, like you know, this last year I really miss like the social aspect of life just in general. Like, I'm like, I have this problem where I fucking hate everybody. Like I genuinely like fuck you. But then I'm like, oh, I want you to be, like, happy and healthy, and, like, I need to, like, talk to people and those kind of things.
You at the same time.
I have that weird problem where...
I've realized over the year that, and forever I've always said, like, oh, I'm pure introvert, I don't care to be around people, whatever. This year's kind of changed that opinion, I think. This is, like, the test.
When you
this is, like, true test, and I think a lot of people are realizing that, like, that is a spectrum.
Right.
Like, nobody is all the way on the introvert scale.
Nobody.
Like, we humans are social creatures.
Yeah. I mean,
at the end of the day, humans are social creatures.
Right. We're interconnected in a weird, like, we feel like people how they feel without them telling us those kind of things.
So you can say, like, oh, I mean, like, and that's great if you're, I understand, like, people are more introverted or less introverted, or more extroverted and less extroverted, but, like, this really tested them. Kind of, I think a lot of people realize where on that spectrum they are.
Right. They can't just say they're introverted now because like they've experienced it.
You've experienced the real deal.
Yeah, and it didn't really. You're like, oh, it's not.
From talking to the people, like my friends, who have said they're introverted, like clearly they also need to be.
Right. There's got to be interaction.
Great at the end of this, so.
Yeah, because like you know, like I know several people that like, you know, that were introverted and all they did was like they just drank themselves because they were just inactive completely.
like just fell apart.
Yeah, so I saw that like too much from my friends and like that kind of stuff, and like, you know, I was lucky just being the extrovert that I am. I was used to seeing people like, I lived with all my siblings for, you know, years and years, and we always had like friends, and the door was always open.
Really, since I've known you, at least, you've always been kind of a social hub.
Yeah. So it's like this thing on like for like, you know, like for the winter here, like when my roommate wasn't around a whole lot, like if it wasn't for this podcast, I would have drove myself fucking insane.
Like I didn't come on over the winter and the fall and stuff, but this podcast was definitely something I'd look forward to at the end of the week.
Because you get like some kind of interaction, and that's
it for me. Like in a lot of cases, I have like Zoom or Hangouts meetings and stuff like that all day, but that's different.
Yeah, it's not the same.
And like we talk, like I consider a lot of my coworkers now friends and stuff. Like we've known each other, we've been through, you know, like stuff.
Well, it's always like one of those like weird things too with like your friends at work. Like there's very few people that like, you know, outside of the friends that I knew before work, which actually was pretty low now. Because when I started there, like I knew like so many people that I knew for years and years prior to that, and now there's like, you know, one or two I think, but like out of like the new like people that I could consider like my friends at work is pretty low. You know, I haven't had, I don't think, anybody that I work with on the podcast, that kind of stuff, and you know, I don't try to like push out like where I work and what I do all this much on the internet. It's just like, you know, I don't want to get in trouble if I'm like saying some dumb bullshit about something.
I'm sure I'll get death threats or something. I'm sure there'll be some, it'll blow back on me somehow.
Well, and that's, you know, that's kind of like, you know, what like I have accepted as like being on the scenario. Like right now, obviously, it's not like fucking like blown up huge and there's fucking, you know, 100,000 people that watch every week.
I don't like that though.
Yeah, it is kind of nice that way.
It's like a double-edged sword though, right?
Right. Well, what's going to happen in the future is if it does fucking go where I kind of want it to go and get huge, is like we'll just set it up to where we have TTS on Discord and we have, you know, the people that can talk are people that I know. Yeah. It's not, and like the chat will still be up and that kind of stuff, but it won't be like the same thing as where
Have you thought about doing like topical?
Not for this podcast. There's other podcasts that I've thought about like starting and that kind of stuff to do topical stuff.
Yeah, this somebody on it's like, let's get together and then like you and Travis like troll the person while they're like going through.
So there's one that I wanted to start with my buddy Seth where it's like I want him to like get drunk and just read off of like a sheet. Kind of like I can't do the individual podcast. Like for me, like I'm a very much like, again, I'm interactive. I have to have something like to do. Like that's kind of where it's at. That's why like I need a person. Like that's why I didn't start this early without nobody here. You know, Travis couldn't come today.
Well, you can't. What are you gonna talk to?
Yeah, and you can. Like it's, you know, people do it.
People do Twitch all the time.
Right, and it's also like one of those things too, like where like you look at like Bill Burr has a podcast where it's just him fucking around. And it's like, you know, those individual podcasts, like they do well because like, you know, they've structured it, they've made it a thing where they have their talking points and everything else. And those work, but that's not what I want for this scenario. I want it to be like a little bit, it's weird, it's odd, like it's funny, we make fucking dick jokes and shit jokes. Like also,
well, that's what I mean. We talked about this earlier, where they're really, one of the first really successful podcasts videocasts, I guess, that I remember was Dig Nation. And Dig Nation, they literally would just sit there and and it was Dig, right? And they would just sit there and they'd go through once a week. They would take the top like news articles on Dig or whatever for the week, and they just go through one after the other and just like talk about the articles. And like it's like this, it's just, you know,
it's a specific scenario.
It's more of a guided experience or whatever.
And that's not something that I want for like this specific podcast. This is like for me and my friends.
This is your like more casual one.
Right, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna talk about bullshit.
This does remind me of that in a lot of ways, though, and that experience doesn't really exist anymore for me in a lot of podcasts. It's just, I don't know, the magic was there.
And then sometimes it's at that time where like you just need some noise.
They would grab a special beer every week, and then like they drink the beer and review the beers, and usually it was like shit beer.
Well, we've definitely done the dumb drinks here before. Yeah. You know, the 12-pack of fucking Four Loko and like.
Well, you had the soju.
Yeah, it's still not doing it. Still hanging around.
I feel like I've talked about it so much that I have to do it.
Yeah, I can't with that one. Like, I don't typically mind soju.
It's like vodka, right?
Yeah, but it's just
Lower ABV
that one is just so bad. And so, like, yeah, we like do like the dumb drinks and that kind of stuff, and like it's just kind of like something that we do, just because it's kind of fun to be like a 17-year-old again. Like, this is just what we can get, and so this is what we drink.
Well, soju's there. That's like the cheapest alcohol you can buy.
So like, I think Eric was on last week. Yeah, Eric was like,
is Tinker Watch Eric?
Yeah. So Eric was on last week, and I was like, hey, like, why don't you go get beer for me? And I was like, this should be fun. And then he brought like good shit. And I was like, that's not really what I was going for here.
You were expecting to bring
I was like, I wanted bullshit out of the deal. But it's, you know, like maybe, you know, in the future, so I was like,
does Eric drink?
Eric doesn't drink almost at all.
Yeah, so you were expecting like
just random shit,
like Steel Reserve or something.
Yeah, and we've done like the 40s. Like we learned that like I think it's Cobra is actually like not bad. I remember it being terrible when we were drinking. I was like, this is not bad at all, which is stupid to say. It's not like we're fucking like, again, we're not 21, 22 years old now where it's like we're like scraping by on like what we can fucking and so like we're just buying it to have fun with it. It's honestly like those are some of my favorite episodes. We're like, this shit's like fucking gross,
but everybody's miserable together.
Yeah, and then other times you're like, I'm pleasantly surprised on this one, like. So it's one of those moments where it's like super fun to have that like weird, and again, people can come and go. Like, you know, we're standing up where you can hear everything on these fucking mics. It's like when I'm in the bathroom, you can fucking hear it. Like those kind of things.
Strange.
You.
So in context, makes perfect sense. Out of context, like if that was posted on Twitter.
It would just be creepy.
That would haunt you forever. Like, you're never running for political office.
Yo, that would be a weird... Eric in the political office would be fucking great. That'd be so fun. I love when he's on the podcast, because Eric doesn't...
To me, Eric kind of makes, like...
Oh, when he's here, it's some of the best. And part of that comes just because, like, he doesn't realize that he's funny at all. He's so fucking funny. Like... He's probably the funniest person that I know, but there's no direction for it.
It's the humor is so dry,
right?
That it's really almost impossible to tell if he's serious or joking or not. For me, at least, I mean, you grew up with him, but for me, it's so difficult to tell that it almost creates a persona, on a show that like.
I love it when he's here. Obviously, he works typically on Fridays, so he can't be here. But, like, you know, he can watch or whatever. And I do love when he's here. Because, like, you know, part of it comes down to, like, that sibling scenario. Again, you know, he's 2 years younger than me. He's lived his entire life, you know, under, you know, what is me in certain cases. Where I'm just kind of like, I'm outrageous. I'm up here. All this stuff. So he's got to, like, deal with that a little bit. But we have, like, this, you know, we were so close as siblings, and we still are.
Like,
all my siblings.
Strong relationship, so it's kind of...
Yeah, it's great. Like, all my siblings. Like, my littlest sister, you know...
It's kind of entertaining watching you guys like riff off each other every once in a while too. I kind of like. I don't know. I like my favorite episodes are when he's on the show.
Oh, definitely.
It's like,
yeah, it's just so silly every time, and like we can like ask him things that like you know, like the fucking pocket pussy thing, and like I know she has what is one of the funniest moments of my entire life.
I was dying. Like
I don't think
I was done. Like,
yeah. So it's gonna be great, like, because what I want for this podcast is like to become like a traveling thing, to where like you know if it becomes where I want it to be like bigger and that kind of stuff, like where we can start traveling and like having a live audience and that kind of shit.
It'd be kind of sick to do like even at a brewery or something.
Right.
Like, just breweries this summer.
We've traveled around a little bit, you know, a couple times with it here and there. I did it at Sarah's house on Christmas, and you know I've done it at my friend Charlie's house. Patio's great, but like once it's like opens back up and we start like. You know, we have a comedy place downtown. If they don't have anybody on a Friday, maybe I can fucking pull in there and that kind of stuff. And it would be fun to have that, like, interaction, but I also want to, like, put Eric on a stage. Because it's going to be...
Just let him be himself.
Yeah, it's going to be the best. It's going to be the best.
Bring new people to this podcast by bringing up episodes with
So, yeah, it's one of those, like, scenarios where, like, I want Eric to, like, experience it, too. Because, like, again, he's one of the funniest people that I know. There's just no direction for it at all. It doesn't really need one. Yeah. So it's almost, I'm like, here's a mic to, like, do a stand-up set. But I'm like, let's ask, let's get
I
the
would
questions going on a
I
fucking.
would watch an Eric stand up. It's super casual like that, though. Basically, like he goes up, people can just like he talks to the crowd and just interacts with the crowd.
Right,
kind of
it's
thing.
one of those things where I think it'd be great to have like a bucket of questions. And they just-
Anonymous
and
questions
then
where
just-
like people can write questions.
Yeah,
drop
so
it
they
in
just
the
write the
bucket
questions
and
down,
pull
they just
some-
pull it out, and it's like
That'd
then
be
Eric has to
fucking
like
amazing.
respond to it and like do those kind of things. I think that would be super
hilarious.
fun.
You should do that on the.
Yeah, I
can
guess
see
we could
doing
like.
something like that.
Yeah, I can-
seed questions like the week before or something. Like everybody can submit anonymous random questions in there because the nice thing about the anonymity is that you can ask whatever.
Right, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
So like that was like that thing.
Because
With
it's not connected to him either because he can give a bullshit answer. if he
Right, it
wants
doesn't
to.
matter what it is. It's whatever he thinks it is at that moment in time. Is all it takes. It's like so I might build a farm scenario to where like we can just like.
That would be pretty good.
So when Eric is
I would
actually
go with
on here, he can be like, we can be like, okay, well, like this like section for you right now. We're gonna spend like half an hour on this bitch to pull that out. And
Yeah,
I think that
and
would
then
be.
maybe go deeper too. So maybe I could see it being like he pulls a question, reads it, or maybe it's almost like an interviewer type of scenario where like you pull a question, you read it to him,
Right.
and then I think there needs to be more like depth though, where it's not just read the question, answer it. It's more like an interview almost, and then like because with that specific episode, that was like an hour-long discussion that went on, or longer than that. That was like the whole episode was on this topic. So I feel like there needs to be the depth also, like to continue it. It almost like
So it kind of depends. It's one of those things. Like again, like on a stage scenario, I think that'd be like the perfect scenario, like perfect questions. Put it on there. It's on there. Like everybody can react to it, that kind of stuff. And I think that's a good like something that I want to like pull out of the deal.
I like it.
In the future. Again, this is not like a fucking tomorrow scenario. Like luckily, like I started this as like I'm not getting famous tomorrow kind of situation. I want to build it as.
I mean, you're also you're hanging out with friends too,
Right.
So there's not like you'd be hanging out with people anyway.
Right. So, and that's kind of like where it came from with this one too, is like, we've always had these like stupid, where everybody at the bar, the hookah bar, the house party is like, what the fuck is going on over there? And that's kind of like where I'm like,
people you see the commotion in the corner of the tavern
Right.
or whatever.
and one of the big pushes for me was like, me and my buddy Wingate, who's also one of the funniest people that I know. We went to a comedy show. It was like a rapid fire one at the Aggie.
What's
It was like
fire?
it was like kind of like they call it like the Coachella of comedy or whatever. So like it was just like everybody had 1 minute sets and there was like 5 people that had like 5 minute sets. And then so like basically it was like bam, 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 and
So
then
you have to have your content ready.
Right.
In this case though,
Drink Europe.
I mean I can go upstairs and grab them. I haven't opened one yet. When I'm finished with this beer, I'll drink one.
what's this?
There's beer from Texas.
Is it good?
I don't know. I'll go grab the 6-pack here when I'm done with this beer.
Seth, what's the beer?
It's a Berliner.
Oh, Berliner Weiss.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go grab them here shortly. But
Is that from Jester King or what brewery is it from?
I'll go grab
We'll ask him and then we'll wait 2
I'll-
minutes. And get an answer.
Yeah, that's the multi-streaming kind of sucks for that scenario because like you have a long wait time. I'll go grab it real quick. Entertainment.
Red Bud.
Where's Redbud out of? I'm not as entertaining as Nick is. Sorry.
Cucumber, lemon, and passion fruit.
But where is Redbud? Or is Redbud the name of the beer?
Red, but
Is that the brewery or the beer?
that's a brewery.
Where
So
is
this
it?
one's a cucumber. This one's guava.
I'm a big fan of cucumber beers, so
Seth Schroeder, Bug Machine.
I'm gonna do the cucumber one.
cucumber does really well in beers. It also
I
another
agree.
really good one is basil. Have you ever had a basil beer?
Yes, I have. Also good. But yeah, so there's the moon waters there. That's the Wingate. He just has a weird name on fucking Facebook.
Are
But,
you wearing glasses, or is your face really red?
Well, your face
My
is a little...
face, yeah, I get really red. I mean, I've been out in the sun too, so I've been enjoying the nice 80-degree weather that we had today.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance because it was the last day of the month, so I had to like work a lot. But
I was on my phone most of the day. Normally on Fridays I have Sterling, like as a kind of a break for Amanda.
that was dank.
Is it good? I like the art.
Yeah.
The art's sick. Yeah, so normally on Fridays I kind of take Sterling for like
Is it cucumber?
the better part of the day, and then Amanda can kind of veg and kind of recoup
Just chill
a little bit. So then I kind of work from my phone. So today we went out to like the park and stuff. Amanda ended up coming with us, but
It's still cool. I mean, either way, like where she's not like full blowing mom on a day or whatever.
yeah, I think we've been pretty fortunate in that regard, where she can even just stay and be a full-time parent
Right.
too. Like that's not something that a lot of people get. So
No,
we're definitely very aware of that.
But yeah, it's making sure that but she's also like, it's a job. It's a full. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
full.
Oh, it
It's
absolutely
100%
is.
job. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
like-
she used to do it. She did it. She was a preschool teacher for forever. That's what her her degree is in and everything like that. It's just it's hard. Like Sarah can
Right.
relate to this. Like they don't exactly get the best like benefits or pay or anything. Like
no,
that.
definitely
So
not.
kinda
It's definitely a
hard.
labor of love for sure.
Yeah.
And so like but doing it for your own is you can't give them back. So now it's like 100% time.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of the opinion that like community wise, it's in the general community's best interest for her to like allocate her time, especially
Right.
to doing that, to raising like not a shitty human.
I can agree with that scenario. Like
It's just that's a hard.
me and my siblings came up pretty well on that scenario because my mom worked at nights, and so like she was available, but
Yeah.
like it was like get the fuck out of here basically. So like we just kind of like did whatever, and even when we went to the shop, it was like my dad's like, well, I'm fucking working, do whatever in the
kinda-
field. So like we lucked out that we didn't have a lot of supervision, but we didn't like do a lot. Like we had every opportunity. We grew up in a trailer park too, like in one that like all my friends like drugs and teen pregnancies and all this stuff.
Given like comparatively speaking, you were good kids.
Right,
Yeah.
like I mean, even still to this day, I think we're like I may say like ridiculous shit, but I'm not out there like fighting people or any of that kind of stuff.
Robbing
Yeah,
people,
like we used to like growing up like as a kid like unsupervised, Kmart and Safeway got stuff stolen from them. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like it was like once it became like like an adult, it was not like I continued that scenario.
Yeah, you had like the moral compass.
Yeah, which is if you look at the way that like we were brought up and that kind of stuff, it was like pretty surprising. 'Cause, like I have uncles and aunts that are like roughly my same age, and like they like terrible people.
Like that.
Yeah, where it's like,
Yeah.
where the fuck did you come up with this? Because like somehow I got out of the deal like pretty well, and I think that a lot of that comes down to is like I had to take care of my siblings a lot, and
You couldn't fuck around.
right, it wasn't like one of those things where like it was like, oh, I have all this time to myself.
If you screw up, that impacts other people.
Right, and I think that like helped a little bit on that one. Not that anybody should ever have to do that. I definitely didn't have like that super fun childhood because of those reasons. But I also I did whatever I wanted to do. I rode my bike around. Like it wasn't like a
My
start.
face does look really red on this. I think
Yeah,
Eric. I think it's the reflection off of Nick's shirt. I'm gonna blame.
I don't know. Like it looks like I'm pretty red too.
I-
on that, actually.
Yeah, I think
The white balance is a
sun
little
I
off.
like that. Is the beer weird, or is my face being this red weird? That's what I'm not sure. What's the commenting
Yeah.
here?
Part of the problem is again like the lighting is kind of like weird because like I have that.
I have a really red complexion, anyways, and you have kind of
Yeah.
a red. Yeah, Amanda and I talk about that a lot, like because she has more of an olive, like she has olive skin tones. So we always wonder like is Sterling gonna get one or the other? But he's clearly like he goes out in the sun and like he's out there for 5 minutes and he starts getting kind of
Yeah. See, like I'm also really lucky out of my siblings on that one. Is I got so like our family's pure white bread. We're Irish, English, and Norwegian. We're super white. You've seen Eric, like white, like blonde hair. The scenario. Amanda's the same way. And, my littlest sister is the same way on that one, too. And, I can go out in the sun with nothing on for 5 hours and be fine. And Eric is, 20 minutes. And it's
right?
So, yeah, I have... It's me, Eric, and Amanda are full...
4 siblings.
Well, so, there's me, Eric, and Amanda are full siblings. And then Lily's my half-sister.
Okay.
And she's 17. She's graduating high school. That's why we have the balloons. Those are her colors, apparently. She just turned 18. She's quite a bit younger than us. And then I have a stepbrother and a stepsister as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of us. And my stepbrother's pretty close to me too. I don't talk to him a ton, but
very familiar.
I lived with him for many, many years too. So it was even when we were outside the house, we had a place and that kind of stuff. And he was talking about well, if I get another place, would you want to maybe move out here? I was well, we can talk about the scenario and that kind of thing. But
and you're the oldest.
My stepsister's technically older, but she was
but she's
when my parent my dad and her mom got together she was 17. And
so you didn't grow up with having an older sibling. You were the oldest growing up.
Right. So yeah, and then because my stepbrother, he was 11 or 12 at the time. So he got the teenage years and in the 20s, that kind of stuff. And then, as my little sister, my littlest sister, when she was little, we hung out a lot. Yeah, you were a good roommate. Difficult, but a good roommate overall. But yeah, as she's when she was really young, we were always around, that kind of stuff. And then it's
Pass out in bathtub.
yeah, he's...
This is me counting how many siblings I have because it's hard for me.
Right, we talked about that, how
I have... How many siblings do I have? 4 or 5 siblings? They're all half-siblings. And I didn't even know that some of them exist. Most of them... Actually, I only thought I had one.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me, in the
yeah.
summertime. Is
I have one... I only thought I had one half-sibling. And then suddenly, on Facebook, apparently I have, what do I have? 4? I have 4 siblings.
Yeah.
And I only knew about one of them until Facebook. And I got, the way that started, it was really weird. The way it started is, a 15-year-old girl messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I think you're my uncle." Yeah.
And you're what?
Yeah, I was wait, what the fuck are you talking about? And then, I asked my half-sister that I knew, and she's oh yeah, that's, so-and-so's kid. And I was wait, you knew that,
you couldn't tell me?
Nobody told me this shit. And then, another one showed up, right? And then we found out, this was maybe 2 years ago, there's always somebody that knew that conveniently never shared the information, kind of a thing. One of the siblings, I'm in a group chat with siblings now that we found or whatever. They all knew each other, apparently. I was just the black sheep.
The odd man out.
Yeah. Well, I was so much younger. I was 15 years younger than everybody else, and they were all more close, and they kind of grew up
together-ish.
But
that's a crazy scenario.
Oh, then it gets weirder though, because then apparently I actually had another sibling who was younger than me by a year and a half. So she's a year and a half younger than me, and I have memories of her, but I didn't know. But I didn't know she was my sister. So she actually lived next door to my aunt who helped raise me or take care of me when my mom was working or whatever. But
it's your aunt knew at that point.
Oh,
probably.
she knew, yeah.
That's so weird. I don't understand that.
So I had these weird memories, and apparently everybody thought I knew, but I was 2 or 3. Nobody knew.
Right, even if you did know then, you probably wouldn't have remembered later.
But I have these weird memories of this little girl that I used to go and play with every day when I was over at my aunt's house. Apparently that was my sister.
It's just weird that that your situation is so...
everybody knew. except for me, like
so odd that like again like they
all
didn't
my
like talk
aunts,
about
my
it or
mom
like
and dad
get
knew,
together or like
like,
something.
Yeah, there's
every once in a while.
Well, there's no. Well, that's the thing too, is that there needs to be some acknowledgement that these kids exist too, and that doesn't necessarily.
Right.
Like,
it's just kind of like
there needs to be there's like a hub for that inclusion, and that willingness to create that never existed. So,
right.
And that's not really like at a kid's level. They're not the ones that should be responsible for doing that.
Right.
So
I agree.
Now
it's
we're like
not
slowly trying to kind of form this relationship together, but it's like weird because we're all like grown adults who have never spoken to each other before in our lives, and people
Right.
from we're from all over the country.
That's when it's like weird, like scenarios. Like I read like those like posts on Reddit when people are like, "Oh yeah, like I didn't know I had a sister," and they're like, "We love the like mannerisms and all this shit that's the same." I was like, "Yeah, because it's kind of genetic too," and it's weird to like have all those like. Well,
they're little things, like little. Generally, it's like the bad stuff. I've noticed, like we all have like a temper, and we all like have like a mild like paranoia type of thing going on, but it all manifests. It manifests in different ways in everybody, but I've kind of noticed that this.
Yeah, it's weird how that like, because like I'm a big proponent of like the way a child is brought up is the way that like they end up. But there's a lot of genetic stuff.
Nurture over nature, but
Yeah.
there's definitely
there's definitely a
like
lot
you're not
of
fighting certain things.
right. It's weird how that works out. Like the genetics really take a toll on that, and a lot of it comes down, because like what you like and what you don't like comes from genetics, and those come.
And it comes out. I think this year that showed up a lot. So, I think when people are stressed, the nature comes out more, right? Like the training goes out the window and it's instinctive more. So I think that like this
definitely.
probably,
if you're calm and collected during like a time of stress, you're like those are more of a not necessarily learning scenarios. Is that you're naturally like okay, I need to take care of it versus like. I've been trained to take care of it. And that's why, like, unfortunately, we have problems with, like, fucking, the police in this country and that kind of stuff. Is, like, those, flight moments come up more than the training does. And that's kind of where a lot of people, like, don't quite understand that. It takes a lot more training to get rid of...
Yeah, well, especially if you're trying to... Hey! Long time no see.
Howdy, man.
Pretty good.
Those are the beers that Seth brought. They've been here for a week. They're my little sister's colors for school. So
You, now that we're in person, I can compliment your shirts in real life. You do those shirts. The video does not do them justice. That's a gorgeous shirt.
Yeah, beautiful shirts. How do you feel not being a robot?
It's kind of weird. We actually had a conversation about that already. It's really weird watching the chat when normally I am the chat.
Yeah.
It's a little funky.
I was
still like halfway towards bringing an RC car over to mount the camera too.
I have a Roomba. We can take and hook the phone gimbal up to it and have it go back and forth.
Put a little cattle prod on it and drive it around.
And that one you can control with your phone, so you can like move it around.
Awesome. Put it up to the chat.
We put one night we had it just had like another like video feed that I can put like in the corner, so it's just moving around like doing its thing. I can set that up because like the program that we used before with the phone on the camera, it can be used wirelessly. So I can totally have a video on there and just moving around and just doing weird shit. That'd be funny because like one night we had like we put his like Bluetooth speaker and I had two Roombas actually, and they were like dueling in there. Like I had everything moved out. We were just like running around. It'd be fun. Maybe we can do that next week or something. Just an extra like video feed on the top.
That'd be hilarious.
How was Grandpa's birthday?
It's 91.
It's fucking old.
Old Japanese dude.
That's less surprising now that you said he's Japanese, because I feel like the Japanese, like,
He's just now starting to age. So.
he's got a ways to go.
Yeah.
It is a
Smiley
thing
guy.
where Japanese people like don't age the same
I'm
way.
curious if there's it has to be like a genetic thing, or I'm also sure there's a diet thing. There's also a culture thing with stress maintenance and management
Right.
too.
Definitely. I mean,
pretty much most Japanese people I've met have been very well. Most older Japanese people I've met have been very like
Can't die before you're 90.
good at stress management, I guess.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Die before you're 90, that's technically a B, and you're
That's a
transferred
failure.
up. Yeah. So you have to be at least 90.
you bring shame to this family.
You gotta be in life.
89. Fuck you. I mean, again, the stress management is a thing too. Like, plus, like, the culture is very much like take care of your people as they age too.
Diet's also very healthy.
Yeah, I'll agree with that as well. And that's something too. Like I was talking about, like to my new roommate, where I was like, my entire family through like everything bad has like lived to like very old. Like, you know, one of my grandfathers worked in a fucking, you know, a gold mine his entire life, and then like fucking, you know, smoked 2 to 3 packs of cigarettes every day and lived to near 80. So you're like,
yeah, that's similar.
I was like, Jesus Christ. And like I had
Nothing
several
kills them.
grandmothers that
Yeah.
lived to 100, you know, ones that like, you know, owned an automotive dealership and they were in the fucking grid the whole time, and they, you know, they just were fucking, they just don't die. And which is, you know, pretty rare for like Northern European descent to live that long.
I'm very familiar with that. Yeah, my dad has a respiratory and heart condition, like critical, where he like is in and out of the hospital and intensive care. Like he got COVID.
And you just won't die.
Yeah, he messaged me, and we were just like, that was the sickest I've ever been. This shit is like no joke or whatever. And he's sitting there like, it fucking hurts to breathe. He's like messaging me on Facebook. And he's alright.
I mean, that's good. Like, you know, like that was kind of like the Ted
He
Nugent
just
scenario.
like, he just won't, you know, and that was the same thing with my grandpa too. Like, you know, he's lifetime smoker, like heavy drinker.
Right.
And he just... He's a middleman. I'm sure he's inhaled his fair share of chemicals and
As a
sawdust
middleman, definitely.
and, like,
Especially like back in the
glue.
day, like, because like they had just shitty vehicles and they didn't give a fuck
Yeah.
about them at all.
Oh, he's a mechanic in the army.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
big
fuck.
truck mechanic. I'm sure he like.
Especially back in the
That's
day,
probably what
Jesus.
keeps him alive. He probably just like
Doesn't, well,
it's like so many chemicals in there kills anything.
I just don't know how to die. And I think that's very much like my family too. Like they like, again, they work till they fucking die pretty much. Like
He's in his
nobody.
70s. He works in the bakery at Walmart. He makes bread, which is like I kind of love the character that he. So I don't talk to him very often, but it was very interesting hearing that like that was his, because he changed positions. He was doing like stock or whatever, but he's making bread now, which is like a very.
I mean, that's a very
different life.
old school kind of thing. Because like, remember, like bakeries used to be like a big thing.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I just think it's funny. He was like a big truck mechanic, and he was like a millman or whatever. Now he's like making bread.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a very.
That's a very old, like, you know, profession when you think about it. Because like, you know how.
Baking.
Yeah, like as far as like a profession, that's fucking as old as it gets, pretty much. And it's like, you know, like one like my step grandfather, his entire working career was in a bakery.
He seems to like it. I like baking. I think it's fun. It's for.
I fucking hate cooking, but
Baking's not cooking.
it's the same.
It's different. To me, yeah. I'll lose that argument, but I'll fight it. I know I'll lose it.
I get you. I
It's a
understand.
type of cooking.
I guess
It's
you.
no cooking.
I mean, so here's the thing: it's like you can be a cook without being a baker, but when you're a baker, you are a cook.
So here's the thing.
Does that make sense?
And,
So it's kind of like
and people are gonna roll their. I'm sure like viewers are probably rolling their eyes at me. To me, the difference is, and you're probably gonna check me on this by saying a cake, but to me it had like
He already knows.
when I think of baking. When I think of baking,
he's been through this rodeo before.
when I think of baking,
seen
I
the
think
show
of yeast.
before?
I think of yeast.
Okay, that's
so
fair.
Baking to me involves yeast. Cooking would involve like, and this is where like the cake thing, because you can have like bread and stuff like that, which uses like you can have like soda bread and things like that. To me, baking involves like a living organism. So
Okay.
I kind of like the.
Like I said, like
It's like bread.
and that's kind of like what I'm like on that roll, where is like as a baker, like as a cook, you may not be a baker, but a baker is a cook. That's where like my thing is. It's kind of like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square, and that's kind of like where I think of it. Is it's like it's the same pathway, but it's slightly different things. It's like being like if I work on cars. I'm a mechanic or whatever, but if I do body work, I'm still working on cars.
I have a
You're technically not a mechanic at that
philosophical
point.
food question for you, though. So do you view people that make food without heat or fire to be cooks?
Yes.
Because to me, cooking also involves heat.
So
Cooking. So this is where.
right.
Sushi.
Right. So is sushi.
But you're technically a chef and a cook.
But are you
Sushi chef.
Yeah.
But are sushi chefs cooks?
Yes.
See, I don't know.
This goes down to like is a hot dog a sandwich kind of scenario.
There's like baked rolls. There's deep fried rolls. So there are definitely cooks.
And tempura.
But traditionally, they're chefs. They don't really cook anything, but they just put.
So
on sushi.
maybe a cook is under chef and chef is.
Or what about somebody? What about somebody who works
maybe
at
we
like
could run that way.
a salameria, for example, right? So they're preserving meat. There's no fire involved in making salumi.
Right.
How do they what? They dry it out?
Yeah.
How? Without any heat.
You're opening a can of worms. It's all. I used to make salumi. So you use dry air in that case, but you don't have to. There are a bunch of different ways to do it.
Right, and there's ways.
In Scandinavia, you do it with cold air. It's the humidity that's the big thing. There is a temperature component.
So yeah,
but the temperature is more about making it so that the meat doesn't go bad and the fat doesn't go rancid. But there's no.
Right. So again, like I think that rolls under like it's all kind of the same, but like there's different portions of like.
There's another. I have another food thing here. Also, you can cook without heat though.
Right.
So you could use acid, for example,
right.
to cook. So like if you make like
a chemical reaction, much like a GRE,
or not even necessarily
so
a
like
chemical reaction. Like I can take lemon, for example, and if I spray that on fish, it kills anything that's there. Is that cooking?
No.
Okay.
But like it kind of is at the same time.
No. Squeezing a lemon onto fish is not
What if I?
But it's still like can be run into the chef's. So
What if
the
I
chef
acid-
is maybe I shouldn't say cook is the word.
What if I put acid
the
on
chef is
like-
the top of the
It's more
scenario.
like a sushi thing.
What if I take?
Right, so
what
it's a
if I
chef
did-
thing.
So
It's
let's bring it back
So
to alcohol.
cook is part of underneath the chef scenario.
Let's bring it back
Which
to
makes
alcohol.
sense because all the shows like Top Chef, Master Chef,
It's all
not-
chef.
they're always called chef.
It's not like.
Cook.
Right.
I think
I think it'd be
there's
funnier
also-
than if it was called Top Cook.
I think there's a prestige thing there too, though, because to me, if somebody calls you a cook, that's like a line cook kind of a thing, where the chef is like the managerial level. That's like
Decides all.
So
like
when
the
you-
leader
Yeah,
of
when you're in
the-
Hell's Kitchen, they don't say yes cook,
it's
which
a
would be
chef.
funny as shit.
Yeah, or the
Somebody
chef.
slipped up and did.
Yeah.
Yes cook. I mean chef.
To fucking Gordon Ramsay. Yes.
Amazing.
Yes
Could you imagine how ape should he get?
But back to your
You see the
comment, you were
phase.
saying that when you think of baking, you think of yeast, like something with like a living organism.
Yeah, which falls apart really quickly. So
So are you saying you bake beer?
that's interesting. But there's no heat either there.
Yes, there is when you make mash. Absolutely.
Oh, right, but the actual process. Fair, very
So
fair
the
point.
thing with like making food in general is that it's like there's so many different facets of what it is.
I guess I'm
There's 1,000 different
the
ways
whole
to make food.
the whole point of this topic was to like get away from the term cooking,
right.
right?
Chef.
So that was like the
Chefing.
Yeah.
But a
Yeah.
brewmaster's not. You don't call him head chef.
Yeah, you want to say chef.
So like
It's the
yeah,
brewmaster.
it's brewmaster.
Yeah,
So
but
like
you have a sushi.
so like
Dave.
so
usually.
that's more of a
Just say their name.
name.
Not even like, there's not even a title. You just say,
That's like a
hey,
marketing
bruh.
so yeah, it's kind of hard to like because again like
Yeah,
I would
arguably
consider
that's-
like beer food. The way that it's made is like very food.
Because
and,
they're
like,
cooking
Yeah, so
They're
like,
You can live
so
off it for a while.
makers of food, and then
I mean,
all
we
the
lived
shit
off it
underneath
for
of it.
thousands of years, right? The Egyptian slaves lived off of beer.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing
Well,
is, before
beers,
potable water was a
right,
thing.
like 1% ABV.
Yeah,
like porridge,
I mean, again,
basically,
like
to
the thing
kill
before
the-
potable water, like this is the only way people survive for a
If
very
you're
long
under,
time.
well, that's one of the. I mean, 3% I think is where the percentage point. That's like if it's above 3%, you're actually losing. You're dehydrating when you drink it. If it's under 3%, then you're actually hydrating when you drink it. So, like for hundreds of years, like people drank alcohol, like even kids.
Yeah,
And
it's
when you say the
everybody.
amount, it's insane amounts too. Like we're talking like liters and liters of this stuff because that's the water. Because if you drink the regular water, you die. You know,
Yeah,
and
it's that's like the
you're drinking
biggest
shit water.
the biggest
You're drinking
reason
shit
why
beer.
you know life got longer in the 1900s is because water became available to everybody. You know, well, yeah, there's still alcohol because you know there's still
And
on
there's
fucked
also
up.
clean water.
Yeah, but like water became more of a thing, and that's like the big thing of making populace live longer is just having clean water to be able to drink.
What how the fuck did we start? Where did the thread, like what was the thread
I don't
on this?
care.
There was something chefs versus cooks.
Because we were talking about baking and things like that.
It's
and
just
I'm like,
I always find it interesting to see like where did the conversation start and where like do you ever go on Wikipedia and you just kind of
oh no,
No.
I can't because I'll just fucking.
you just never on
Yeah.
Wikipedia.
Urban Dictionary, absolutely.
Even that scenario, like Reddit's the same way for me. Like I'll get like on one topic and then I'm like fucking like.
And now people cross-link in the comments and stuff
Yeah.
too, and then you just
So Wikipedia is bad for me because I'll spend 3 hours learning things that I literally do not give a shit about that I don't want to fucking know, and I'm like,
yeah. There every once in a while, like I'll get on one and I just go and it's like I'll get on like a murder one or something.
like who's this person and who's this person?
The one I remember was like the Land Before Time one with Ducky
Oh
or
my
whatever.
God.
And like I clicked on that and then like I was like, wait, she died like a horrible death or whatever. And then I click on that and you read that article and then it like links to like child death or whatever. And then like
Then you're just on like the history of that scenario.
it's
Yeah,
like
do
doom scrolling or whatever.
Yeah, I have a big problem with that kind of stuff.
Good.
Like, what was that site
I'll
like
stare
that?
at
Like,
TikTok for hours though.
I've never been on TikTok. I get enough
Don't.
TikTok on Reddit.
Yeah, you don't.
So-
It's fine.
Reddit's just the everything,
It's
the
the hub
catch-all,
for a bunch
yeah,
of shit.
of just everything. Like, if you
I
want to
feel
know
Yeah.
stuff that you like are is definitely wrong, you can find it on Reddit. You can do like Reddit just has everything, and so like TikTok's fun for like me, where I'm like I'll scroll a couple things, see some titties, like that kind of stuff, and like some cars or whatever. But then like I'm
All
like.
day.
But then, like, I get pissed, like, that, like, you know, this dancing fucking 19-year-old, like, doing a dumb dance that's not even doing it right. Or, like, they do, like, the fucking trends wrong. I fucking hate.
Have you been on like the
I
TikTok cringe stuff?
Fucking hate when people do the fucking, the challenges wrong, or they use the trend wrong. Like, they have the wrong noise on it. And I'm like,
So you're
shut the... I get pissed. And I'm like, okay, I can't anymore.
You're like a passive critic. of TikTok.
Oh,
People are like,
definitely.
you do the stupid challenge that this 13-year-old created.
Yeah.
What kind of
Well,
like,
this is it.
10-year-old are
It's
you?
because they did it wrong. Like that's my problem. Like if it's a challenge or like a fucking trend, do the thing if you're gonna do it, because you're gonna get stupid amount of views anyways. Because you're doing a stupid shit. Do it correctly. If it has the wrong sound on it, go fuck yourself. Like that's how I operate with it. I'm like, that's what makes me get off. Like our buddy Jack, he has a timer set on his phone that locks him out after an hour every day. Otherwise, he'll spend hours on that bitch.
On TikTok. I was that way with Twitter for a while, and I had to stop because it was, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, when you
get
click the
into those
wrong-
threads and just sit there for like hours, and then I get off and I'd be in like a really shitty mood for like the whole day.
Right. Well, especially like when like Trumpster was president, you get on there and it's just depressing. Like you're like how, and then you see like
I mean,
people
that's
in
still
comments.
going. That's still on Twitter. It's
I
just,
know, it's
just on the
crazy.
different. You just have to go on different. It's different tags.
Right.
I never really fucked with Twitter.
Good.
Wasn't my style.
I go on there every once in a while. I think it's
I mean, this is streamed on Twitter, so
for better or worse. Like it is a really good.
I still have all the followers on fucking
You know what?
Periscope, even though it's
You know what
canceled.
Twitter's
So
really interesting for is news. Because it's
Yeah.
so fast and
It's
it's
quick.
not control and the messaging.
did you ever
is
see
controlled,
that
so it's a
one with
double-edged sword.
that Asiana flight like crashed in LA?
that's the first place you'll hear.
Yo, did you see like when like the news people posted about it? Like they like, oh, we got like
just all Twitter stuff.
oh my, it was so fucking funny. Let me find it.
This
shit made me die laughing when I first saw it, and I saw it before it got like immediately debunked because it's fucking hilarious.
So it's interesting to me because I think Twitter's going to cannibalize a lot of media, like syndicated news channels and stuff, just because you can't. So and this is going to make me sound paranoid. So syndicated media can control messaging, right? So they can do that. You can't do that on Twitter, and Twitter's way faster.
Right.
And you can pick which stream you want. So,
yes, dude.
This is actually a newscast that was real, and somebody didn't read it before they put it. They want to be the first people to do it.
Still trying to determine the cause of death and whether she was already dead when the truck hit her. We have new information now. Also on the plane crash, KTD has just learned the names of the 4 pilots who were on board.
Some Ting Wong,
Some Ting Wong,
holy fuck.
Lee Ho Lee Fook, and Bang Ding. KTD has confirmed these are the names of the pilots on board flight 214.
Right. So
That was real.
This is the double-edged sword of Twitter, right?
Right.
Fuck with their 4
However,
pilots,
the greatest thing about it though is that you will get news before anybody else sees it.
Because you get the person's like there.
It's literally
filming it,
like somebody filming that shit happening, and that's kind of
every time
like a news channel can't decide not to show it. Like Twitter can decide to like ban the person or whatever, but you're not going to ban thousands of people.
No, and that's kind of the thing is it's an open platform. Like unless it's like super hate speech, that's when they'll fucking get rid of it.
So if they can figure out how to harness that into like an act, and they're starting to do it too, because now they have like the trending stuff and like the recommended for you and that kind of thing, and they're trying to do it, but like I mean it's really fast to find that stuff.
It's super fast.
So like if I hear something
that Nashville like bombing, like where that guy filled his like motorhome full of shit. I knew about it like way like as soon as it happened. They're like, "What the fuck is happening?" Like downtown, like Nashville, and like somebody had a video of it blowing the fuck up and all this shit. And it's like that shit was wild and like.
Or like on January 6th, like you go on Twitter
immediate,
and there's like before any news station
right.
reporting anything.
There was people that were there in it doing it,
like
filming
recording.
it.
There's like a ton of shit on there, and like I was messaging people like turn on the fucking news, like go on Twitter, linking people, whatever, and they were like, "What the fuck are you watching? Like this isn't on the news. Like what is this?"
Yeah,
and then like 30 minutes later, an hour later, it shows up or whatever. It's pretty.
Yeah, the insurrection thing was like crazy because the people that were doing it were filming it and putting it on shit.
I'm also convinced that we are not designed to intake that kind of like.
Oh, definitely not.
Intellectual discord where like you basically have multiple people screaming at you from different angles, telling you stuff is real and fake about pretty much everything, and as humans, we're not designed to. Like,
no, and it's a huge.
Noise.
Like again, like if I get caught up in like a Twitter scenario, like I'm waiting for something to get done, and then I'm like, fuck it. Like now I'm depressed. Like what the fuck?
I'm depressed. My head hurts. I just feel exhausted, like emotionally exhausted too. So. And
that was like a big
I don't
big thing. Like during the pandemic, is like, oh, now I'm just like on social media, is doing like whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm like fucking A. Like this is bullshit.
Doom scrolling.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll go on it like if I hear. That's the first place I go if I hear of a big event. So like if there's a shooting or something like that, and I want to know about it, that's where I go because I know that that's going to have the most information, and it's going to be like the most up to date.
Right.
I have to assume that half of it's fake though, or not accurate.
Right. So you just have to like.
Same thing with all the protests in Denver and stuff. Like.
Well, and again, like there's so many people that just put it as doom and gloom scenarios, and because they're in the same boat.
Because they're on Twitter, hanging out, and yeah. So I tried to reduce that, and that's helped with my
happiness for sure. I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's helped with my unhappiness, I guess, is the way I'd put it. Like,
right, not dragging more unhappiness into your life.
Yeah.
And that's my thing too. Like the way that I operate social media, it's like always just. It's usually dumb bullshit or selfies now. I don't give a fuck about anything else. Like, I don't care what other people are doing. And half the things, like, there's 2 people that fill my entire fucking, like, Facebook feed anyways. Because they're always on Facebook just posting some dumb bullshit. And then, or, like, I'll see some, like, dumb comment from, like, my family or something on, like, a post. There's like, I don't believe it. And I'm like, you're dumb. And just move on with my life. And that was a big thing, like, to, like, understand that, like, for me is, like, just be me. Dick don't give a fuck. And just do that. Like, this is how it has to be. Otherwise, like, it just drags you down. When you're already sad and lonely, now you're like, now I'm going to scroll through this sad and lonely bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the case.
How was your week?
It was busy.
Trying to change, hopefully, to a more positive topic.
I look at it the same way. Again, Dick don't give a fuck, and that's just how I have to operate the scenario. My week was really busy. Yesterday, like, I was hanging out with a friend, and like 10:30, my head just like got like super light, and like I got like a nasty headache, like crying headache. It was nasty. No, like I drink fucking 2 or 3 of those every day. So like I was like super confused, and like it still hurts today. Like it was when I woke up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, it was like fine, and then as the day progressed, it like got a little worse. And I was like, well, I'll take a nap. So I took a nap like after work, and it's not too bad right now, but I still like I can like feel it, which is weird.
Your 5G activated.
Maybe.
That's what it is.
Maybe. It feels like I smashed my head into something, but I definitely did not.
Updates.
So we'll see how that works out, like with the drinking tonight, and then I'm going to go ride mountain bikes tomorrow morning. So it's going to be a fun one. Me and Seth are going to go fucking ride.
Where are you going?
We're going to blue sky, like right below where we used to live, and then we're going to go
Are you
into
gonna do
Coyote
yourself
Ridge and then
to-
down. So
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
so
so
you're
it's-
going like.
it's
up
basically
to-
just all we're gonna go up to Coyote Ridge, and then it's just all down because we're gonna park one car at the bottom of Coyote Ridge, and then drive the 2 bikes with a different car to the top.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'm pretty excited for that scenario before it rains tomorrow because it's supposed to be like nice
Oh,
and
is it
warm.
supposed to rain tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow afternoon, like late night, it's supposed to rain.
I miss living back there.
Yeah, I bet you do a
I
little
go
bit
back and
more.
forth.
It's nicer like for like the isolation when it is noisy, and it's also like
I don't
terrible.
miss like having black bears walk up behind me at night when I'm trying to walk to a meeting and stuff.
Right.
It's kind of concerning.
Did you ever show you those pictures that he had?
No.
When the last time because you had pictures like the last time you were here of the black bear. I thought,
Oh, probably.
yeah.
Pictures.
Because
The one, like,
it was
next
before
to the
the
car or whatever, where it's like the better part up, like the windshield, like the window, like the passenger side.
I mean, I've hiked Horsetooth
That
in
was
the
like
night.
the biggest black bear I've ever seen.
I've hiked Horsetooth at night, which is like across the street, from where you were. And like I remember like one night I was coming down, like just doing a night hike, and I had like nobody was up there, so I had my big old fucking flat, like my headlight on, like fucking just like had my fucking Bluetooth speakers playing music or whatever, and then you hear some like fucking rustling in the fucking, and you'll turn around, you see eyeballs, and you're like,
2020, like stuff definitely took back that area.
Well,
Since
that
there
would have been.
there weren't as many people out, and
I think
you
the last
think like
I was stalked. By
oh
that,
2020 people are gonna be hiking or what? No, like people just stayed inside for the most part, or largely like.
At least
there
around here.
definitely were not that many people out, and wildlife definitely. There were more birds up there than I'd ever seen since we moved up there, and like we had actually that started before COVID though. Like the mountain lions.
yeah,
Ever
that's
since I told you about that.
like mine
So
was
you know
like
the mountain
late
lions
2019 when I was
that
hiking it.
so my neighbor was the one that found that guy hiking, and they started. There was a mountain lion across from our house. Like,
Well, I remember as kids, like we used to like because I went to
Just
Olander,
hang out.
like just down at the bottom of the
Yeah.
of the hill, and we used to have mountain lion like drills.
yeah,
And we used to see them every once in a while, like and that was a thing.
They're-
It wasn't.
they're, like,
It
mountain
wasn't for
lions are
many years.
terrifying.
It wasn't until like after the fire scenarios where they had to like move in a little bit or move back. So that some of them moved in and some of them moved back on the High Plains fire, and that's when I got stalked by one hiking. I was like
Well, yeah, because they all got pushed too.
Right.
They got pushed out of the
back
out of
area.
14.
yeah.
area,
So like I was like. So
Yeah,
like
for
yeah, I was like cool. I'm getting
Self.
stalked by this mountain lion right now, 2019 by myself. Like, so I was turning the music up as loud as it fucking go, and just keep shining my light back at his fucking face. So I wasn't like oh no, I can stalk him because he's turned around.
I mean, cats can kill stuff that's 3 times their body weight.
Right.
That's kind of the ballpark.
Cats kind of suck.
So yeah, it was very one of those moments
they're in
where
trees and stuff. It's not like they're always on the ground. They sit in trees and then they fucking
jump at you.
come from behind like
Yep.
a cat. So
And that was very much the reason, like, turn around, like, get that flat, like, because I have it's 1,000 lumen fucking headlamp, so it's bright as fuck. And I'm like, so I kept, like, looking back at it as I, went to the mountain. It stopped kind of stalking me, like, right before the parking lot, kind of. Because I went down, like, the fat trail, and instead of, like, the single trail. And I was like, okay, like, I need to, like, get down as soon as possible on this scenario. Like, because I'm not fucking going to be one of those people.
the bears bother me a little, but like black bears you can scare away. Like they're not.
They're more scavengers than they are attackers.
Like the mountain lions, and like you'll probably hear them. Like
They're big and bulky.
mountain lion, like you won't hear them. If you heard them, they didn't do it right, kind of a thing.
Right, and I was lucky that, like, in that night, that it wasn't the case, where I was like...
We've had black bears. When I was up there, there was a black bear in our garage one day, and I went in to go, like, what was I doing? Oh, I was building raised beds. And I went in to cut something on the miter saw, and there was a black bear in the garage, like, not a big one, like a yearling or whatever. And Amanda saw one also. She thought it was our dog at first, just a little tiny one climbing the tree in front of our house.
Well,
It was like hanging
that's
out
when you
in front
have
of
more of
Chicago.
a problem, because when you have the little ones, there's a big mom
Yeah.
that's pissed behind them. So
We had the big issue with the mountain lions we had is that they were. And this sounds terrifying now that I talk about it. They were hunting in like a pack, and normally they don't do that. So they were actually, it was like a mom and 2 like yearlings or whatever, and they were actually going together out.
yeah, that's
hunting
when
and
you're
stuff.
not getting away
And that's
from
fucking
them.
terrifying because
Yeah.
it's 3 of them, and you
Yeah,
can't.
they're
even-
gonna fuck your shit up and like fuck you up, and they don't care.
Yeah, so, I don't miss that. I miss being around the wildlife. I miss all the birds. You sit out and drink coffee and you see all the bright colored birds and stuff. And, it's nice having deer come down and that kind of thing.
Right.
But
I was looking at like
having AC is nice too.
I'm looking at like trying to find like some property where I can buy because like right now the housing market in this town sucks. So like
It
it's
got worse over.
mm-hmm.
So the lumber price doubled since
Right.
in 2020. It like doubled. So all the new construction went up too. So it froze everybody, and somehow the housing market improved during like mass unemployment and
Well, so we just didn't have that. We just didn't have that problem as much, like in this area, because people just want to, they can work from home with the jobs they're doing, that kind of stuff.
I know a ton of people who went on unemployment here. I just don't understand like
The money's still here, so that's kind of the problem. And, like that's where I'm looking at too. Where I'm like, so like I was looking at like the other day, like yesterday and today, I was looking at like there's a property like just it's like 30 miles like west of here. That's like it's only like 3 acres. Nothing crazy. It's on the top. You can't get no fucking utilities, which at some point modern day
maybe
doesn't
on a
matter.
well too probably.
Well, and where it's at, it's on top of it's the one that I found that I'm like seriously considering next week like going in that loan scenario, like trying to like figure it out because it's fucking dope. But it's like on the corner of like this road goes around, but like it's on the top and there's no well, there's no power to it, no nothing. So like if you wanted to run power to it, it'd be expensive because you have to run it from fucking down the road, that kind of shit. So like you're looking at like lots of cash. But where it's at, it's on a road, so like like where to drive to it's pretty gravy.
Where is this?
It's technically like it has a Bellevue address, but it's up past like where Stowe Prairie and stuff. Still, it's still west of that.
Oh, that's not that bad.
Yeah, so it's not very far from here, but like again, like it's in an area where like nobody really wants it because it's like so kind of like isolated in its spot.
Right now it is.
But,
in 10 years it'll be.
Right, and so that's kind of thing is I was like, well, if I get into it now, and the price is within like an easy, this is $300 a month scenario, and I have some land. And if I wanted to build something on it, then I can do it over the course of 5 years. Those kind of things versus like buying a $500,000 house here, I can spend $200,000 have a custom house, a building, or whatever I want on top of it. Now I have to have solar and run water up there and that kind of stuff, which is perfectly fine now. You know, if this was like 10 years ago where solar was like a little bit more sparse and not as good, this would be a problem. Like now you got like Tesla walls and like all this stuff where like, oh yeah, I'm gonna put $20,000 into this solar array with batteries, but I can actually like live on it and do the thing. So I'm kind of like thinking that way, where it's like I spend $300,000 over the course of 5 years. You know, I'll still like buy loans and do whatever else on top of it. But if I get the property right now in the spot where it's pretty solid, I was like, you know, $350 a month for property. You know, I waste more money than that every month. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like,
It's like your beer.
right. So it's one of those like things where like I can like put this, you know, towards like getting my, you know, basically long-term financial stability on top of it. And then if I did want to live on it, you know, in a couple of years, like, you know, then I just get a loan for whatever it's going to take to build a house at that point. But it's still going to be cheaper than buying and building it down here, because I'll be doing parts of it myself and those kind of things. And, you know, I got other people, like my roommate, that can help me do random shit that I don't know how to do or whatever. And, like, so the big things like, you know, put a concrete pad on it, that kind of thing, get a fucking, you know, a septic tank scenario set up. So, you know, rent the fucking backhoe. I mean, I have people that have them, so like I could borrow them and just, you know, give them some beer or whatever, and just kind of do like all the basics myself. Right. So like I have all these, and I know how to use this machinery. Like I have a Bobcat in my family. Like I literally can go hook it up to the pickup and drag it up there and fucking use it. So like for me, like it wouldn't be that hard to like do something that, and it's close enough that it's like, oh, if I want to spend a weekend doing it, I'm not like fucking out in the boons building a cabin. You know, I don't have to like, you know, have the camp. I can come home and then go up the next morning. It takes half an hour to get there, but that's, you know, within the time frame.
That's also that's really convenient for when you forget something,
right?
Or you need like,
you know, I run out of screws when I'm building something, and then I'm like, yeah, it sucks that I have to spend an hour doing it, but now I'm not like spending.
Or you forget to order something,
right? Or 5 hours to fucking go down. And now with like Starlink coming out and those kind of things too, like even internet's a possibility in that scenario. That's not garbage. So it's one of those things where I'm like,
it starts to
the next like couple days, I'm really gonna like
feasible,
like think about like doing that scenario, because it's not something that I can't afford. Like if houses were fucking, you know, $100,000, I can afford that in my current scenario.
I don't like we went under contract because we did a build,
right?
And we did it. So we started in 2019. It's like it was like December 2019, and you go in and there's like, you know, you lose money if you exit out of the contract or whatever, right? Like you lose your down or whatever. Like we were seriously considering backing out because of COVID, because we thought the whole market was going to tank, and like we could back out and then buy the house back once they finished building it at a cheaper,
right, and
at a lower rate.
it's good
because we figured, oh, the market's going to fall out, nobody's going to buy these things, right? And then we'll eat the cost to back out of the loan, but we're still going to make it up later. But the price increased, so I just don't understand like the
right. It's just again the market's so
we basically
barren here.
Well, it's not so much that because it's a national thing. What we ended up doing is we switched to we like somehow decided. Never. Let's talk about something else. We'll start talking about economics, because we basically switched to modern economic theory.
Right.
Overnight, we flipped a switch and said, "Oh, we'll just start printing money, and that's the facility that we'll use to fuel the economy, right?" Like there's no like intrinsic value. Like we fully decoupled from gold, and we never like really did that when we said we were gonna untether.
Right. It wasn't.
Dollar. We said we did, and we kind of have behaved that way. But we never actually went full bore and just said, like, we're just going to print money now, and then when people want to work for us, we'll make new money and then have them work for us or whatever.
Right.
And we started doing that. And that's also why we had record unemployment and an all-time high in the stock market at the exact same time. Like, normally, like, by normal
conventions,
that should be impossible. Like, we had, like, a record-breaking low GDP for like the decade or whatever, and we had a record high unemployment, but we also had an all-time high in like the S&P 500. Like you can't really have those all.
Economics
at the
is
same
kind
time
of broken right now,
unless
and that's
you're changing the.
right. And it's really we're gonna see how the next like 5 years what it turns out for that scenario because it could it could be okay, it could tank the whole scenario. So we could pull us into another recession. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I have some very strong feelings about about this topic.
That's fair. I mean, that's what's one of those things. And like again, like we're smart people, but
it was class war is what it was. Like it was direct class war. Like if you have, if you hold securities, if you have stock, that was awesome for you. If you didn't, your like hourly salary decreased in value, was devalued, is what.
Well,
happened.
and that's like the problem. Again,
So like everybody, I don't see. Did you guys get a raise for the equivalent amount that they inflated the U.S. dollar? I don't know.
I got my guaranteed raise that I was getting anyways, but it didn't really change the
I know a lot of people that were
scenario.
laid off or took a pay cut.
Right.
I don't know anybody that got a raise for the equivalent amount of money that they printed.
Right. And
so everybody actually decreased in salary. But if you have equity, then
you're good.
Then you made up for it in spades, right? So what they effectively did is they pulled money out of.
Well, and that's one of those reasons why I'm looking at like let's get some fucking land in this scenario because at worst it stays the same value. So at worst.
To me, what they really need to watch out for is something more like when we talk about like, oh, they're going to be blowback. What they need to watch out for is more of like a French Revolution style situation where
I think people are too lazy. And
well, that's the thing though is that I'm not talking about like in the next year. That's not going to happen. But like when people start having issues eating as a result, because we're seeing that price reflected in food and in housing. And things like that. Like the price of food is more expensive now than it was last year, right? Housing is more expensive.
Housing is definitely more expensive.
Eventually, that will get to a point where you can push people so far when they can't feed their families, and it becomes an issue. And that's where I think we're playing with. We're starting to, and we're seeing people testing that boundary a little bit.
I could agree with that. So
and it's really how well can that system be optimized so that
it's
people are miserable but they're okay.
They can still survive versus like not being able to survive.
Yeah, how can you market people's misery so that they're okay with it? Because we're in a post-scarcity economy. Like there's no reason for people to be like hungry.
No.
It's insane to me that we fight over stuff like this. Like there's no real reason to. You have like there are individuals in this country that make more than countries do. Like some large countries have a smaller GDP than some of the individuals in this country. That's insane, and we're in the most wealthy country.
Right. I think that we have a large populace of people that make more money than most countries. If you look at under the top 50 countries.
I mean, it's also
we have our whole entire 1% makes basically like. The entire, like, all of them combined out of the top 50.
The really disheartening thing to me, and I'm a contributor to this that's really interesting, is with COVID. And I think we saw it in COVID a lot with the vaccines. So I have coworkers in Spain and in Italy, in, like, Austria, which has the highest standard of living on Earth. Like, they still aren't vaccinated. And I think that really shows where how big the disparity is in some cases. Like these are also very well-developed countries, and in some cases they're more advanced than us in certain areas, but they're still like we're all done. Like a lot of people are done with this experience here. That's normal. Things are opening up and back to normal. Like people that are in their 70s in Italy still haven't gotten the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy scenario, too. Like, again, we also have a problem with people are being fucking dumb as fuck.
So they're just like...
And, like, not even, like, getting their shit here.
It's kind of... And, I don't know, I think it's just an interesting, like... That's a really stark way of showing, like, the privilege of being an American, right? Like, that's one of the benefits of living here and contributing to the society is that we get that benefit, but it's also there's a very stark reality.
Have I ever showed you that, Travis? That's the hose that came with the Suka.
But I don't know.
We don't.
I like that I said let's talk about positive shit and then straight back into like.
Well, sometimes it fucking works that way, and I look at like How again, like my whole like I hate people. That one's special too. That one's got camel skin. That's what that leather is.
Let's go back to talking about Eric.
These feel like
That was like
sweatbands.
Good conversation.
They kind of are like sweatbands. I never
This one's
really.
kind of cool. I like how it's. I guess this one's also square. This one's cooler. With the blue.
Yeah, those were. I don't use them obviously, but they're cool.
They're cool looking.
Yeah, and like obviously, like you know that blue one was brought here specifically for me, and you know the Suka was brought here specifically for me. Yeah, I'm just gonna burp all over my shit.
Is bowl good or are you new one?
We'll make a new one. But yeah, it's just one of those like scenarios. Like again, like you know we can harp on like how shitty like things are and
I'm just curious what's gonna happen, like in the next 20 years, how that.
right, and that's a
gonna
big
play
thing,
out.
and that's also one of those like scenarios.
Realistically, it's gonna be the same.
Right, and that's kind of the thing is like you know like I said like 10 years ago almost I was pulling all my second job, all my money went into a fucking bank account to like try to get fucking you know a house scenario, and this is the second time that I tried to do it like after like 2009 when I lost my like good job and that kind of stuff. What?
Wish I'd dumped that so it doesn't light a trash can on fire.
You can just dump the trash can.
You're saying that like that's happened on the
You
show
put
before.
the coal. He's
Not on the show, but it's happened.
once you get the coals off it, you can just put it in the trash can. It's fine.
Okay. We'll check. But yeah, I did. I was cleaning the hookah upstairs one day.
Oh, at this house, it's happening again.
Yeah. And I also don't like hot things. But I was
You
dumping
work on
out-
cars. I guess it's
I
different
hate
for
it
you
every
now.
time I burn
Yeah,
myself.
that's fair.
I don't do it a lot now, but I still hate it. But I was cleaning out the little ashtray around it. And there were still some smoldering coals in there. Threw it in the trash can upstairs. I'm just cleaning out whatever. Turn around, there's just like kind of smoke in the kitchen. So I just yelled, "Dick's down here." I'm like, "Trash can's on fire!" I just like ran outside.
I was like, dump water into it, run it outside, put it in the fucking fire pit. And not the first time. I lit that trash can fire and right there. I've lit that trash can on fire right there. And I'd take it upstairs and fucking take the hose to
I
it.
actually went out in the back today. I was a little surprised you guys were down here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how warm it was gonna be. Like you know,
It's
right
supposed
now.
to be cold tonight. It's actually supposed to be relatively cold.
So yeah, I was like, we're
It's supposed to be
probably
in, like, the 40s.
it'll probably be like early June before we roll out there, just because that's when the temperature like at night like it's only like 65 and those kind of things. But when it's like 45, 50, it's a little cold just sitting out there doing nothing. Like it's when you're moving around or whatever, like that's fine. But yeah, it'll be nice like once we get like mid June. So I have I'm doing my fat ass is gonna run a fucking half marathon in early June.
Have you been training at all?
A little bit, not enough. I've been busy and like all sorts of stuff too. I'm just like I'm gonna struggle. Luckily it's all downhill, but
Are you
it's
doing
still.
like Dan and your sister?
No, just me and my Amanda was gonna be there like to hang out, but she didn't do it. This is the one that she qualified for Boston last year, technically with it.
Oh, she used this one for.
Yeah, the same. I'm doing a half marathon. She did the full marathon, but it's on Utah Valley. So it's just south of Provo.
Okay, so northern.
Yeah, it's basically
Northern
like
Utah.
it's kind of like in the middle. Like Provo is like, I think it's northern Utah. You're right. So yeah, it's just up north. It's in the valley. It's gonna be fucking beautiful. Early June, right next to the river. So like, going out there. So we'll do the podcast out there, and then probably the next week I'm back.
I feel like Utah is one of those like hidden like beauties of the United States. Like if you're in the U.S., you know like Utah's a great place to go to hang out, especially if you want to do outdoor stuff.
Right. I agree. Not like
I feel
normal, not normal stuff. You don't want to go there. Salt Lake's not bad,
there's-
but Salt Lake's cool.
It's
But
pretty
like,
dry states.
yeah,
There's, like, the
their
religious
liquor laws are
overtone
so
and-
fucking weird.
But
Or like they have to pour your drinks behind like a curtain.
but
and
if
shit.
you're like, but if you
Have
want to
you
do
heard about
outdoor
this?
stuff,
No.
the
outdoor
Momo-
stuff is amazing.
The Momo stuff.
Yeah,
Pour
so
your drink behind a curtain.
yeah, so if you get a mixed drink, they have to pour it.
Well, they have like
behind-
dry counties and stuff. Too,
Right.
I think. where
But
they
like
just-
their state liquor laws are fucking weird and like ass backwards because it's all run by the Mormons.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyways, I feel like it's one of those places where like if you're in the U.S., especially in like the western half of the U.S., that's like the outdoor destination or one of the big ones, right? I think
Because
internationally.
you have Moab and you
Yeah.
know.
well, like Zion, Bryce Canyon, like
it's a fucking dope place and it's beautiful as
skiing
fuck.
is amazing. Like all of this
Driving
stuff.
across on 70 to fucking Vegas sucks dick, but it's a fucking terrible drive. But like all north, like Salt Lake's pretty
It
rad.
depends on. Well, that's the thing though, is if you do that, but you make pit stops, it's amazing because you can go and hit up like Canyonland. You can hit all of those national parks and state like monuments through there too. So if you make it long, it's awesome. It's just if you go straight through, it sucks.
Yeah, it's just fucking. It's just.
But
it's
like,
a cool state.
Internationally, I feel like it's not marketed. Like nobody I know internationally wants to go to Utah. They all want to go to like California, Colorado. A lot of people want to come to Colorado to visit. Like New York, Florida. Like those are kind of.
Well, and those
like
are like the travel destinations for a lot of people in the United States too, because they don't really like. Again, if you're not outdoorsy, you know, like do a hike
Well,
or
these are
like
like
a dirt
outdoors
bike,
people.
like
You don't hear. You just don't.
right.
Utah's
So
like
Utah is like one of those like like those like kind of like an oasis of like stuff to do that's like outdoorsy and
they don't have an Aspen. kind
Right.
of thing, and that's the issue for them. I think is like internationally, people hear, "Oh, Aspen, like we're gonna go there, like tell your like like
Right.
that kind of thing." There's no like, there aren't the cities that get like
Right.
the international.
There's only again like you got like Mo is probably the only one that's like really like known outside of like I would say the States, and again probably for like the wrong reasons. Because like it's kind of like the place where you like go do fucked up shit because you're in the fucking desert, nobody cares.
Yeah.
But again, like if you're not like into that like motorsport stuff, that's where like Moab really like rolls on. But again, like you got like this, a lot of people like know like the salt flats from like the car stuff out there.
But not for outdoor stuff though.
But yeah, again, it's not somewhere
I
like
mean, it's different. It is outdoors, but it's different.
yeah, you're not really looking at it as like that's a destination that I want to go to.
When people think of the mountains, like to go do that kind of stuff, they think of Colorado.
Oh,
They don't
definitely,
think of-
it's Colorado. Maybe like.
it's like Washington.
Yeah, I mean, mountain stuff's kind of hard because like here in the States we think of like you can do like Yellowstone, Montana, and like Idaho,
California's
like those kind of
too.
stuff.
You can go in like the Sierras. And
Well, and
stuff.
that's the thing
But
about
California's so big that it just.
Yeah, California's one of those like places too. Like if you go like to Northern California though, like or even like LA, it's not really that far to go to like the mountains either.
Fair.
So like it's one
So
of those
from
things.
San Diego, it was like a 3 or 4 hour drive.
Right, which
kind of
really
thing.
isn't that crazy when you think about it. Like you go from fucking ocean to mountains
We
like
would
that
drive.
quickly.
That was actually a thing growing up where we would do like beach to the snow kind of a thing, where like you start the day at the beach and then like you ended up with snow in the mountains kind of a thing.
So and that's something that's really nice about California that you really can't do just about anywhere else.
You can do different types of things.
Yeah, but like California works that way where again you can go basically from like especially like a warm water like scenario like the Pacific versus like the west like the East Coast where like the Atlantic's pretty fucking cold, especially like where you can go into the mountain scenario. You're not like gonna hang out at the beach as much unless it's like midsummer, but then you're not gonna have any snow. Whereas like in late spring in Southern California, you can basically like I'm fucking surfing in the morning and then the next day
snowboarding.
and that's something that you can't really experience in most of the world, really, when you think about it. Like it's
The problem with that though is that
France.
when we talk about that,
France, you can do
snowboarding,
it.
When we talk about that,
But again, you're still dealing with Atlantic Ocean, not like warm.
in Italy, you can do it
So-
in Italy too, though.
Right, from the Caribbean up to like the mountains,
Just,
or not the
you go to the
Caribbean, the
Alps.
Mediterranean.
You go to the Mediterranean, you do the
Yeah.
Alps in a day.
So yeah, you can do like that, but like there's very few places like Japan. I guess you can do that kind
I
of
think
scenario
the issue,
too.
the problem with that though is that you're getting mediocre of both.
I think
You're not going from like the best beaches for surfing to like you're not going from good beaches to surfing to good like
well, yeah, you
snow
gotta
stuff.
look at it like.
because like you're
I
not
guess Hawaii is also in that scenario too in the spring. You can go actually to a 13er and go down the fucking snow.
is there's snow in Hawaii?
Yeah, the biggest.
Top off the mountain.
Holy shit!
Yeah, I think
That's
the
like-
peak.
that's
I think you
nice
can
to
drive up to like 13,000 feet.
Holy crap!
Yeah. Yeah, it's. My buddy Jordan said
That's
he's
crazy. I didn't realize
he's
that it
training
was
for-
that.
he's training to go out to Hawaii to ride his bike to the top of that, which is that's a long Again, it's like
Doing okay
uphill.
over there? Me?
Yeah.
Just poking holes.
You have a problem?
No, you looked like you were
Concentrating.
really. you looked like you were really enjoying poking the holes
You were
there.
spelling out your.
Your mouth was open, and you were kind
That's
of.
my concentrating face. I was trying to edit some videos last night.
Sometimes like he'll be playing games and he'll be like playing like his like single person stream or whatever, and he's just sitting there like. I'll be like, bitch!
It does help now that I don't have to look up at a TV because I feel like that made it worse. I'm like looking like normal, kind of, so I don't think I do it as much. I don't know. I need to learn how to edit video to make like interesting.
Are you using DaVinci Resolve? The one I sent you?
No.
Okay, well you should use that.
Send me that one.
We should use that one because it's one of the better non-linear editors that's
If
free.
you're gonna smoke, I'll switch with you.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, I was trying to edit some last night. Just mess around with like some other free shit that did not work well. Just
Get all
and then
cotton mapped
we have a
out.
little like interaction, like call out or something, and then just back to.
I'll send you the link to DaVinci Resolve again because it's pretty dope. So, and it has like all.
It's good now I get the cold spot.
I know, this is warm, dude. Yeah, warm butt. Dude, that passion fruit guava one reminds me of the one that we got from Collision, or whatever it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
I'm gonna finish this sour out, and then I'm gonna go for that one.
I was gonna grab
Too late.
the cucumber one, but I wasn't sure.
Just kidding, you can have what you want.
I was gonna say, unless you're gonna drink two.
Is that?
Oh, is that the only one left? Yeah.
Oh, the guava one, yeah.
Cucumber.
And those are different
What's the
ones.
other one? Is that just plain?
Cucumber, lemon, and passion fruit. So these supposed to be lemon? Blue doesn't make sense for lemon, but there's no like flavor on it like there's the other ones.
It's just a Berliner.
Yeah. That bowl might be shit, so I don't fault that. It's either gonna fucking
Well, that first bowl already colored my water. Like,
it's either
they
gonna
cleaned
smack
it.
like a donkey or it's gonna taste like a donkey.
I made one that was pretty good. I don't remember what it was last night. Did you breathe it?
Fine. Yeah, dude, no one was down to play last night. So I tried to play with randoms for like an hour and a half.
It's hard.
No one talks, man.
Randos are hard, dude. Like,
Fuck.
so like, you didn't play with us on Wednesday night when we played, and it was me, Jack, Avery, and Teddy. And first game we got like 6th or whatever, playing Rebirth on Rebirth Island Resurgence. We got like 6th or whatever, and then it was a second place. Yeah, it was a second place, and then it was 3 first place in a row,
Oh boy.
and then a second place. We were like, okay, so like we're gonna end on that 3 in a row, and then we're like, nah, we'll like play till we lose, like we don't get first place. And then it was second place, and I was like, I kind of want to like keep playing with like. If SBM is not fucking us already after one win, because usually like we'll win like second game, and then it's like brutal after that. It's every hacker lobbies. It's fucking terrible. And then but like that Wednesday, I was like, we got fucking 6 games and only 1 out of the top 2. I'll take that.
No,
Like
what you're talking about? It's like foreign language to me.
Well, basically, like, so, you know, it's a battle royale, so like PUBG style. So basically, we won with squads 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And usually,
No, I understood that part. It was like
the
last-
SPBM. So the SPBM is skill-based matchmaking.
The better you are,
So it's like ladder.
Yeah. So basically, like,
the people of your
yeah. So like, it's trying to like just basically like make it to where it's like evened out.
Yeah,
throughout the
you
thing.
want a good.
So usually, but like we usually have this thing where like we'll win like second game, and then it'll throw us in the fucking hardest lobbies.
I see.
And so like we're like,
So you're kind of like right on the edge of like.
right. Well, and the big thing that we have with that scenario is like.
Also depends on who's in our lobbies.
Like Travis is decent if he's not like under pressure. As soon as like
I'm
pressure like
great
rolls,
under pressure.
as pressure rolls, there's screaming, there's it's like it's shooting over here when it needs to be over here. Like
I twitch, I jump,
yeah. So like we have like he's like so like we're like we can get like pretty good like especially like in a duo scenario we play enough like together that we can like we usually do like top 5 team pretty much every time we play, and then we'll win one, and then it's like oh now we're top 30 every fucking game.
It's so weird to me how that happens. Where I remember playing like Counter-Strike, for example, and like I would get destroyed on Counter-Strike over and over and over, but every once in a while, like I would get like 10 kills.
Counter-Strike's a weird
like,
one too.
You just
like,
get like every once in a while, like you just I don't know, it's like you're just in the zone and you just hit like every note just goes off
and some of it comes like online
and
too.
that's always been weird to me. For me, that's always
that I've noticed is
usually
ping
I'm like just
of like host ping is like a big thing. Like what your connection is to like the host, either server or whatever. Like whenever we get lobbies that are like sub 40 milliseconds, I clap all them cheeks. Just bap, bap, bap. Like I just murder everybody. But like typically like we're running like 50, 60 ping, and it just feels like I'm shooting pea shooters. Like
the thing for me, it's not. The reason it was always weird to me is my mouse control isn't that great. So it's not like there was a skill like I was always better with like the set like strategic kind of stuff. So like in Team Fortress I'd always play like the engineer or whatever, right? Or like a scout
we should
like
play that soon.
Like that kind of character. But like in Counter-Strike and like Call of Duty and stuff, like my mouse control is not that great. But every once in a while I would like have a streak and I would go through and like hit like 6 people.
It's not bad.
I get like 6 kills or something. But normally I just like die.
Well, it's also one of those things too. Like think about like sometimes when you're
That's why I always liked Unreal Tournament, by the way.
I love
my mouse
Unreal
control
Tournament.
sucked. So
Yeah. The bigger hitboxes.
but I was a lot better at like jump. You get your rocket launcher.
Yeah, and then you don't need to be
or
perfect
even,
on the scenario. I love the reason why I
like
liked
tribes.
like Quake.
I love tribes too.
Like Quake and Unreal Tournament and those kind of games is that like everybody's even playing field, and it's just about your knowledge of the map, of like where your weapon that you use is at, and where you can like again jump or
skill
launch or
based,
those kind of things. It's mostly like skill scenario where you don't have to worry about what gun should I pick up and these kind of like
it's
items.
also simpler too. There aren't as many mechanics. Like you're literally jumping around.
Right, you can't climb. There's no climbing.
There's no like airstrikes. There's no, which are cool mechanics for the game to make them interesting. But
yeah,
I was getting almost wrecked the other night. I was playing. Like randos would just leave or just not do anything. But somebody was at construction during the fire sale, and being on the other end of a ton of cluster strikes, fucking shit show, dude.
So
for me, I turned it into a game though, because I was getting bored. Like they weren't doing. When I'm on the top of our team leaderboard, it's a problem. Like, sometimes I'll get there when we're playing,
right.
but it's not like super common. So at this point, I'm like, fuck it. Those guys don't care. I'm just gonna stay on the roof and run around and just see if I can live. But it's aggressive.
So like your airstrike scenario, that's kind of where he's talking about. In Call of Duty, that kill streaks are a big thing. Well, in this,
you get kill streaks and then you get like the abilities or whatever.
So yeah,
Is that
so
how that works?
in the Battle Royale version, the Warzone side, you can buy or pick up occasional airstreak, and they're basically like what would normally be like the bottom like tier of kill streaks on like a normal multiplayer game. So a normal multiplayer game, you get like it's a cluster strike or an airstrike, but nothing like that's just gonna sit there and mow people down constantly. But
you're not getting attack choppers. You're not
Yeah.
getting the AC-130s. You're not getting that shit.
so, but in this one mode, there's a fire sale. It's called a fire sale every time, and if you have a stack of cash, you can buy like 50 of them.
And does that persist from game from?
No, so like it's Battle Royale, so it doesn't persist. It's only in that game. So, but basically, you're just constantly using it, and so like it gets to a point where if you can't use it, you have to wait till like all your
There's
shit's
too
done.
many in
Because they have to
the air.
really-
The airspace
Yeah.
is too full.
So usually we learned at the end of like, not this last battle pass, but the battle pass before that to like finish the battle pass to get a ton of points, was to just go like save your cash and then go to
until the very.
and then just buy all that stuff during that time, and then we just mob it out. And people
Hate
like,
you for it.
oh my god, it's and like.
But you'll get the random. Most people like avoid it, but you'll get the random killer down every now and then. Yes.
But the thing is, like, for like a total probably like 2 or 3 minutes, it's just constantly raining down hellfire on the fucking map. Every way, every direction, it's just
Kill
constant.
streak that would normally be like $3,000 is now $600.
I see.
Yeah, so you could buy 5
So
to
do people
1.
you just go in a building.
Well, most people don't do this.
No. That was the first time
Only
I've been on the
YouTubers.
receiving end of that. We do it a lot because it's funny as hell.
It's super fun because like all the teams are trying to get into you and you're shooting them while they're in the middle of your airstrike.
It's great.
It's fucking and like
Being
yeah,
on
it's
the other end is aggressive.
yeah. Not many people do it, which is surprising. Like how many people don't do it.
I think people will
It's been
that's
like
what I remember
this has been
with-
this way for like 6 months.
with
First time.
StarCraft. There used to be an issue with that, like StarCraft 2, where you could pick up. You can't do it anymore, but it was like a fortress rush or whatever with the Terran. So in the beta testing, you could do this. You could pick up your base if you were Terran, and you'd move it, and you basically just drop it. It's called Dimensional Fortress Rush, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
I remember right. You basically pick your entire base up, because Terran you can lift off, right? And you move it over to the other person's base, and you drop it down, and the Terran base you can build a turret on top. So you basically pick
So
your
you
base
sneak
up,
it up
you
around
move
the
it-
corner.
No, you don't even have to do that, because there was no, in beta, there was no way to defend against it. So you just lift the base up, you move it over to the enemy base, you drop it down right next to it, you build a turret. So they're busy like building these big like barracks and all of this shit, right? And you're building this turret that takes like 30 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever. The turret comes up and just mauls like everything, and then you win. And you could do it again. You could actually hit 2 bases with this. So you could take out, if you were Terran, you could take out 2 Protoss with it.
Yeah, I mean,
So they fixed that. pretty
I
quick.
love like OG
That became
StarCraft.
That came to a point where like everybody was doing it in the games, and it just like broke the beta. So they
This is
fixed
one of
it.
those like scenarios.
So I suspect, like, I bet.
Well, I mean, that was like one of those things too. Is like to take like back in the day was like take a Zerg rush and just build like these. They're the cheapest character like outside of. They're the same price as like your builders.
But you get 2.
But you could get 2 of them, and then you basically like
Send
you
it over
make
and
it like
attack
as
all the
fast as possible. So
builders
like when they're still trying to build up like their stuff to even build these
while they're
items.
in process.
And then
of
you just
building
send
items, you
100
them
of these
over and it
fucking-
attacks all their workers, and then they just are dead.
Yeah, Zerg rush was crazy. I just like playing like
They
like-
killed that and
get Protoss and just build a shit ton of fucking turrets because you just build
Yeah.
unlimited turrets and they attack air and fucking ground. Whereas like the other ones, like you had to build a ground one and an air one, and even like a Terran, like you had to build like characters to sit in the ground, the one that would shoot ground. So like basically these you just build all the way out and then you just build all your characters while they're fucking with your shit and then you just roll over them every time. I was.
I like StarCraft.
I was offered money to pay StarCraft back in the day, and it
The
wasn't
original-
it wasn't
original
worth the time.
StarCraft, or-
Yeah, Brood War.
Oh yeah, super. So
Yeah.
that was like super early competitive game.
Yeah, so like it
You
just
would be
wasn't
playing against like Koreans.
right, and it just wasn't worth the time effort to like because you didn't make enough money doing it. You know, in the early 2000s.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was 20 years ago at this point. You just didn't make any money. There was no streaming, there was no nothing, so you couldn't make any money on the deal. And now I'm like, looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I
And you
had
could have
like
been like sitting on. You could have been one of the commentators.
right,
on,
like one of those like
really
scenarios where I'm like, man, if I would have just sat like through like that, it would have been like
that's everything though. Like that could have ended up being nothing.
right. It could be
Then you have 20 years of like.
right. We didn't even know
playing games to the
streaming was a
point where You
thing
don't like playing games. Kind
Yeah.
of thing.
because you got to work a full time job while putting a full time job worth of effort into that, and you got paid cool. You got paid $10,000-$15,000 a year to play basically, which is cool. But except for you're putting 80 hours a week in.
Yeah, and you have carpal tunnel, and you had to have surgery on your wrist.
Right.
and-
I'll have to see if I can find it because I tried to clip it, but I had the best hot mic I've had so far.
Yeah.
So the Gallo is fucking shit up right now.
Right.
And
Shotgun survival right now.
So I was using that, and I was just kind of over it. So I was just sitting in a building, just kind of waiting for people to walk in and just lighting them up.
You were being that asshole.
Yeah, so this kid comes in, and fucking light him up. He's like, "Why the fuck is everybody using the gallows? So he screams it, and then I just wait. He comes back down to get his stuff. I'm still sitting there. And I kill him again. He's like screams like he's being cut in half, and just, like, something was breaking.
Well, that was like that one snipe that I did when we were playing duos that one day. And I like sniped this dude like over, like you could barely see his head. And he was in a car, and his controller got thrown at the fucking TV. Something got thrown at a monitor or a TV, for sure. All you hear is, "Wha-bam!" That's all you hear on the hot mic. Like,
People need to chill.
I mean, I used to be
I'll get
angry
frustrated.
I used to
Big games and stuff.
Bad.
I get
Not
like,
like
when I start, there'll be certain games where I get no kills and I just die constantly. I start to get frustrated. Damn! That was loud as hell.
yeah, that was an abnormal balloon. I mean, it doesn't help we're underground.
And then, like, super echoey in here, too. Damn,
I'll get frustrated, but I wouldn't throw, like, I'm not gonna punch a hole.
I'm not gonna break my
or,
equipment and, like, cause damage.
Yeah.
I just scream and get mad.
Drop some F-bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I definitely remember. I don't know, I never really got into competitive games that much. Just, I don't know, I was never good enough to like hit like a ladder point where I wanted to be competitive because I was always playing like RPGs. I play like RTSs and stuff a lot, but even then it wasn't like the fucking RTS.
water all over the sink.
Is that really?
Yeah, it's like a big old stripe.
Huh.
With RTSs, like you need to be raised like from a child
Yeah.
playing RTSs, and like they're like 12-year-olds that have already had like surgery on their wrists, like the ligaments in their wrists to repair them and shit. Like they literally sit, like they have people that sit in rooms like from being a child. Like they send you.
They
to
have
camp
issues
to
with people
school you
dying.
doing it, and
In like Korea and shit, like where they'll be at an internet cafe for like days.
and they'll
that's-
die from not like drinking water
Yeah.
and stuff.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's RTS gameplay. Like, you know, I've been like in competitive like scenarios for much of my life for gaming. Like I've played against like I'm sure you've heard of like Jonathan Weldon, like the Fatality. Like I've played against him in a tournament, like those kind of things. I've been like in gaming in RC cars, like like there's one member that I'll never forget. Like this one guy, he's actually dead now, but he would just get like super pissed on the driver's stand, and he always had like the nicest shit. He always just spent a ton of cash, and he was like good enough that like if you like put like like he was like just shy of like maybe getting like a sponsorship, kind of like a light sponsorship scenario. It's like good good guy or whatever. Like but he'd get pissed sometimes and it's like chuck stuff and I've done the same thing. Like don't get me wrong, but like I remember he threw this really expensive remote came out. And it was brand new. You really couldn't get it. He just happened to like get one of the first like pre-order scenarios for it. And it's like $550 worth of fucking controller. And this dude, he gets like taken out like a few times in the race or whatever. And we're just like club racing. It's like Wednesday night down in Denver, just club racing on the carpet, nothing crazy. And just turns around and just yeets this motherfucker into the back wall. Just fucking, oh man, this fucking the top's all fucking hanging
Imagining
off.
everybody goes quiet.
Well, and the thing is, it's in the middle of the race. So, like, everybody else on the stand, like, what the fuck just fucking happened? Like, we're just fucking driving.
Keep your heads down.
And I just happened to, like, be standing there waiting for my turn, for the next race or whatever, and to see you, oh, man. And it's like, man, and I've thrown my car a few times. Like, don't get me wrong. But, like, not my controller, because that's delicate scenario when it comes to RC racing. A car's pretty delicate, too, but, like,
It's getting banged up anyway.
yeah, you're going to get hit.
It's designed to be
Yeah.
rough.
So when you're throwing a fucking flat pan chassis and it fucking rolls off the fucking stairs and shit, like, it's happened, but, the anger scenario I've seen, when you get competitive, you put a lot of effort and time into it, it makes sense why you get pissed.
Diablo is really bad for that too. Diablo 2.
Oh, yeah,
So that's probably what Amanda's playing right now, actually. She still plays that game 25. Man, that game was out when I was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
because I used to go over to my friend's house because I didn't have a computer and he was playing Diablo 2. But they, like, there's this story I always remember about this in China where somebody was at an internet cafe and they were murdered by another Diablo 2 player. Because in Diablo 2, if you're playing, like, multiplayer, whatever, if you kill a player, you can loot their corpse and you can take all their items.
Ooh.
So somebody did that, and then they doxed them. Or they didn't dox them, they found the IP address out of the computer they were playing on. They hunted them down, they traveled to the internet cafe, and then murdered them.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, competitive gaming is
shit's
crazy.
crazy.
And, like, you know, that's not
Or
even
like the
a
SWAT, or like
competitive game.
the swatting and stuff too.
Dude, that's a wild scenario too to get swatted. That's what they call like the cops on you. They call it like they're like.
Have you ever heard of this?
They're like, you know,
They're like people
weapons
getting
and
shot by the
bombs.
cops
Yeah.
over this. Where they'll call and they'll say like somebody's like beating their wife or whatever like next door. Like I can hear it right now, kind of a thing. Their arm, like they have a gun, like I can hear, like I heard a gunshot or whatever, and then like the cops show up at your door, thinking that's the situation.
That'd be fucked.
Just over because of a video game. And it used to, well, it was a joke. That was the thing. Like, people did it, you know, kids did it as a joke or whatever.
Yeah, they would
People
do it
started
till the
People started
friends and
actually getting
shit.
killed because of it.
Yeah.
So
Because you know
Started.
problems with police. So yeah, it was definitely like for like
It was
probably like 2 or
crazy.
3 years. It was like a big like all the time it happened for quite a while, and then I don't know like you know really how they stopped that scenario to be perfectly honest. I just think it just
people
went out-
realized,
it went out of
holy
vogue.
shit, this is real.
yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's not only like you fucking up like the game scenario, you're fucking up like people's lives.
Well, and then they'll know that you did it too.
Right.
And, you know, it blows back on you also. Obviously not being killed, but
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a wild scenario to like think about like this.
well, it's
People
also
get-
hard. Like, how do you teach that to like a stupid like a kid,
right.
like who doesn't really have any concept of this, like,
Yeah.
oh, I was joking or whatever. Like,
Right. I don't know. And again, I'm glad that it's out of vogue because like it was.
that was kind of terrifying actually for a while.
Well, I mean, just like the thing, like you know, just being famous, you know, like where people like just raid your fucking house when they feel like they show up at your house, like or your place of like wherever you're doing, you know, your creativity, like on YouTube or whatever. Like one of the creators that I follow is like Cleese McFarland, like he's bought a racetrack, and people just like when they're like.
They just show up.
They just show up at this fucking racetrack, so they had to put like all these fences and cameras and stuff up, and it's like, no, like and he's like, don't come here, and then they still come, and it's like now like you're like so obsessed with the scenario that you're like trying to fuck his shit up, while all he's trying to do is like provide entertainment for you and all this kind of stuff, and like make a living out of providing you entertainment.
Shitting where you drink, kind of a thing.
Right. It's weird. It's weird to me that people get that way. Like, and also like obsessions with like celebrities is like a weird thing to me that I just will not understand ever. And you know, sometimes it's kind of cool where like they make like cool art or you know shirts or things like that. That's fucking cool. Like to be like, you know, like into like what you like.
Fandom.
Yeah. But then there's other people that again they break into like their houses and shit. And I'm like, what?
Obsessive over it.
Yeah. How are
There's
you
a
getting
difference
to this
between
point?
like fandom and obsession, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, it's a weird thing to me that we have like people that are like that, and it's always been a problem like since fame has been a thing. You know, like you look at like it's only been like 100 years really, but like ever since that like you know fame could be a thing where you could just be you know rich off entertaining people or
No,
whatever.
we've had it. It's been longer because even like the Queen and the royal family and stuff. I mean, that's been forever.
Right, but that's more expected in that scenario too.
Well, I
because,
guess
like,
what I
it's-
mean is that's like a fame. There is a fame component there.
Right.
Beyond, I mean, the royal family doesn't really have a ton. That's not true. Apparently, so I learned yesterday that the royal family, the Queen can actually remove. In Australia, the Queen can actually remove, like, have some impact over the politics
Right.
there. Like, directly remove people.
Well, and technically, even in Britain, they have like it's ceremonial
be-
typically, but
it
like
would cause a big. If it happened there, it would cause a big deal. But
Right.
she actually has more power in Australia directly than she does in. Like they celebrate they have a national holiday for her birthday still. That's celebrated more widely. It's a bigger deal in Australia than it is in England, which is crazy to me.
so fucking wild. Again, to have that like notoriety, and again, it's that.
Well, without any real power, like there's
Right.
not really any real power connected. It's like an honorary thing now. It's a cultural piece.
Which is still weird to me too. Like, cause like it wasn't like I don't know. You're like your entire culture was shit on by so
kind of
many
a weird
different
thing
royal
because
families.
it's almost like a weird. They should almost be the opposite.
Right. It's kind of like a Stockholm like scenario where like you're like in love with like your captor. It's kind of like the same idea where like they control you and your shit for centuries, basically millennia at this fucking point.
They've done a really good job of branding and symbolism, right? So the crown represents England, and it's like the purest form of
Yeah, it gives you like that like
society.
it's so much more like that nationalist at like the maximum level.
Yeah.
Like where you're so nationalist because of like well this is how I grew up and this is what it is, this tradition and all this stuff. It's like I find tradition generally to be a way that people that you don't even know control your fucking life. And that's why like I'm not like traditions for me are like do your things like with your crew and your people and your family and those kind of things, like you do those, but you don't just like do traditional shit because like you're supposed to. Like I hate that like scenario. If you don't like doing it, don't fucking do it.
Yeah, I think that's for us. That's been an interesting conversation with like a kid, right? Like what do we do? Because like I have very different. They're not very different actually. I have differences in my traditions from my family than Amanda does, right? So what do you do with a kid, like for Easter, for example, or like Christmas or whatever? Like what are the little things? That's kind of an interesting.
Well, it's figuring out like what you as parents like better.
Well, that's the thing is ultimately what we've sort of ended up doing in a lot of cases is just like throwing away the stuff and just sort of creating new things.
Right.
Because ultimately that's actually easier.
Right, and it makes more sense because it
like
brings you guys
arguing
together
over,
as
trying to figure out like how do we mix these things together and like
whose family
like,
tradition are we gonna fucking do?
Or like
You're kind of lucky on that scenario that like with McCullough being a similar lineage, like where you're like those things are very similar between like you and her.
ham or prime rib on Christmas dinner that kind of thing. Like,
But there's no other like culture I know where it's okay to give like your kids Spam for their birthday.
There isn't one. You're
that's
literally
distinctly Hawaii.
yeah.
I was the president of what they got for his second birthday. It was a can of Spam.
Right. Well, and we're in an area too where like that's not a normal thing that you eat either. It'd probably be a little bit different if you were like back in
Are there
Hawaii and that was like
in how that's handled though, like in Hawaiian culture, like are there differences in how that's handled though, like, or is it exactly the same? Like,
I mean, there's
the
probably
tradition
differences in it. It's not really a tradition. It's just a thing that's like okay for. Like it'd just be weird if you opened up a Christmas present and there was Spam. But like it's just okay if you're Hawaiian. It's just a thing. It's not really.
I would think it's kind of weird.
Like no, like
right.
If it was not present, there was like spam.
Well, again, we don't.
It's
now
not a
though, if I
tradition,
like,
it's not weird.
if I opened now, however, that I know that if I opened a present, there was like a can of spam, and it was a Hawaiian friend, then I know.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, it's not like a custom or a tradition by any means. It's just not out of the ordinary.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
Right.
cool, sweet.
Yeah,
But
it's
there's
like
also- there's
if
a
you
lot-
gave that to me, I'd be like, from you it'd be different. But like, let's say like Tyler gave it to me, and I'd be like,
Or
the
you,
yeah, what the fuck are you doing?
Tyler.
Like Hawaiian culture, it's a lot around food as well.
Mhm.
So you eat almost any time you get together with anybody, you find a reason to eat.
Yeah, we just like even little things like Easter, for example. Like, do you get the Easter basket before or after you collect the eggs? Well, if you get it before, then you can put the eggs that you find in the Easter basket. But if you get it before, then you don't want to collect the eggs because you already have the Easter basket, which has stuff in it.
Right.
So it's like this weird, like just little things where like the tradition is like the cultural component is the same, but like there's little differences.
And that growing up,
Where it's
like
just been easier for us to just kind of, in a lot of cases, just say like, we're gonna start we're going to assume that there is no tradition, and we're just going to pick and kind of create our own thing.
Right.
Because if you add like the history to it, then it starts getting like personal, and it's
right.
Like
and it kind of depends on like how you feel about like your own traditions and things like that too. Is my family, like, especially like, growing up and like that kind of stuff, like, my grandparents and my dad was like, a fucking Catholic schoolboy for a while and all this like, kind of stuff. Like we went through like all of that, and as like me and Amanda, like we're very much like, nah, no thank you. Based on our own experience and that kind of stuff. So now when it comes to like these like holidays, whereas like if we ever had kids or whatever, I don't think it would be the same thing for me because I'm like, I don't believe in it like at all. Or like I'll make fun of it, I know about it, these kind of like items, and they go like.
Did you guys do like the Passover, like the whole?
So like we didn't really do the Passover scenario at all. Like my dad was like not much into that. But like we do Easter as like
giving
all cousins and stuff like that. Like we never did any of that. No Lent, none of that stuff. So like we we didn't do any of that stuff as like in my like my like immediate family. and some people like in my extended family still do stuff like that, but I'm very much like I don't believe in like fucking religion and looking at something. Like I understand why it exists, I understand why the reasons for it, these what happens, and part of that came down from like my poor experience in a church scenario. I've told that story before. It's fucking dumb. It ended me cussing out a fucking lady at a church when I was like 13 years old because my dad forgot to come pick us up. And like I was like, at this point in time, I take care of my siblings.
It's like a
what did I do?
Yeah.
So and that was like my initial like, maybe this is bullshit. And then I looked more into it, and then as I went in my 20s, I met like Saudis and other people from other religions and that kind of stuff. And a big thing for me is I learned that like it's the same, but we say it's not the same, and that's very much like Islam and Judaism and Christianity they're all basically the same. They all have the same rules and operations and all this kind of stuff. There's very minor differences in how they operate.
Who's telling the story?
Right, and it depends on like like in Christianity, Jesus is a very much like prominent figure. Obviously, it's Christianity. Like that's just like scenario. But if you look back in the history of like the way we celebrate it as like modern times, that kind of stuff, like Christmas didn't exist until like the 1800s. Right, and so like they took that, and much that's where that came from. There's no way he survived in that area, as a baby. They all died if they were born in the fucking winter. They just didn't exist. So there's no way that he would have survived anyways in that kind of scenario. And then you look at it like in my brain too, like look at like a virgin mother pregnant by God. No, she was just telling her husband some lies and not. Because she was like fucking around. Like I like that's the way that I look at it. It may not be true, but this is the way that like I look at that scenario and those kind of things. And it's not something I don't believe. I believe that Jesus was a person. That kind of stuff. I think that he existed, but I also look at like those stories, and again we went back to like going back to like how everybody had to drink booze and all the stuff. So it was like fucked up during all these stories, and that's why they're kind of crazy. And then, you look at like, Islam, and like Jesus was a very prominent prophet in Islam. He just wasn't God's son, but now we hate each other because we have this differing view on how that works.
God's son.
Yeah, and we're like, they're both based on like Judaism, which is, several hundred years older, but they're basically all the same scenario. They're all, Abrahamic and stuff like that. I love like when you tell like these like people that are very like faith driven, but they don't like do the research on stuff. And you're like, Jesus was a Jew. He had to have been.
So the oldest, I don't remember. I think it was the oldest graffiti in history is talking shit about Jesus or something.
Well,
it's the oldest.
in that area, I would say probably.
I think it's the oldest graffiti.
Well, because like the Egyptians were before that scenario.
But there wasn't.
And hieroglyphics is basically graffiti.
Well, no, but like. Sorry, what I mean by graffiti is like slander.
Okay, I got you.
So
where
like
it's like trying to damage like something.
Because the Romans were actually very well known for that. Like you can go and you can see, like even in, like actually there are a lot of art. Like in a lot of museums, there's like artifacts that they'll have, and it's just graffiti that's written on it from like 2,000 years ago. It's pretty
Right.
interesting.
Well, and there's a big like theory that Christianity was developed by the Romans to gain control back of their empire, and that's where Roman Catholic came along and that kind of stuff because it was roughly the same time frame.
I'm curious. So we've been having this conversation, and I'm still back on the Christmas spam topic because I'm curious if I want to know what a Hawaiian Christmas dinner looks like, because you mentioned like the food culture and stuff, and now I'm like,
Yeah, we went.
so what is like a Hawaiian, like a full Christmas spread look like?
It's like we did that. I think it was either last year or the year before. We're just like, let's not do like a traditional, like, I guess,
Like a mainland.
like American Christmas dinner. So I mean, we had pulled pork, we had macaroni salad, we had lomi salmon, we had poi, we had rice.
Would that be
Yeah.
like?
Like a standard luau kind of.
Is that
spread
that's
setup.
pretty common though? If
Mhm.
people. Sounds
Yeah.
pretty good.
Obviously, sashimi, raw fish, all the seafood. 'Cause it's just you go catch it and then.
I could do that. I'd be pretty happy.
It's like
That's actually one of the things that I miss. I miss the most about San Diego is the seafood, and just the food variety in general. Like the seafood, I really miss, and it's not the because you can get fresh fish here with like
Right.
transportation works really well. It's the price of stuff if you want something decent. It's
Yeah, it's
so expensive.
It's pulling
Especially-
pocketbook and making it like
So when I look at like
here's all my money.
And it's
the
still,
tuna, it's not the same. But like you
still,
can
yeah,
get
even if you get like the top shelf,
It's not
premium
the
stuff,
same
It's still
as-
not the same.
like you can get decent stuff. It's just I agree.
I was gonna say we went out for last
The tuna is the
year
thing
for
I
my
know.
daughter's birthday, and then some other things. Kind of made a big family trip out of it last year. And we were at this place that my family has used for years for just like get-togethers. But it's right on the ocean. So I was out there spearfishing, and so I caught something, and I took it right to the kitchen, cut its head off, and cooked it.
That's where
You just can't beat that.
like in San Diego, it's just so like if you get tuna, like for sushi, for example, like the wharf is right there. San Diego is one of the largest tuna fisheries, or it used to be one of the largest tuna fisheries in the world. Now it's not like the biggest, although Japan imports a lot of tuna from San Diego. But like the place you buy and eat the tuna is like right there on the pier and stuff.
Right.
Where it's like you go to all the restaurants right there. They're all serving the tuna that were brought.
Well, and something you have there, like in
Like it's just hard. And it's like it's a fraction of the cost too. Like it's so cheap.
because you don't have to pay for any
Like, here
transportation
you
or any of that
go,
kind of stuff
yeah.
to here. Plus, like what you also have there in like San Diego versus like here is
Well, there's a demand too. That's the thing.
the-
So,
amount of different people and like
Oh, yeah.
cultures and everything. Like we have here, like we have our Mexicans, we have like our white people, and that's kind of it. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
like that
whereas
you
like
have there's a skin color and a nationality.
yeah,
The
but
white
everybody
people
kind of
and the
knows what I'm saying with that
Mexicans.
scenario. Whereas like you go there and you can get any kind of food.
The-
It's
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
it's
The
obviously
Mexican
like
food here is very different for me also, and that's been another thing that's interesting is like in Southern California it's Baja style, right? Mexico's it would be similar to saying
Right.
like, oh, I eat American food, right? And you're eating like steaks, for example, right? Well, that's great. Or like a Philly cheesesteak. That's a more localized
Right.
example. Like you're eating a Philly cheesesteak. That's great, but that's like one type of American food. Like,
right.
That's not Cajun. That's
Right.
not like barbecue. That's not like there are all these other things. So it's kind of the same thing where here the food is very different from like the Baja style where there's a lot of fish.
The West Coast Mexican style food, like like one of my favorite places here in town, like for Mexican food, is like they serve more Southern style Mexican food, where it's it's typically a little blander, but like it's like like the ingredients are
It's
like
more typical of like Central America.
right,
food. So,
So
there's a lot of
it's-
like rice and beans.
Right.
And that kind of stuff.
Versus like, you know, like where you like you go to like, you know, the Los Teas, which is one of my favorite places here in town, that kind of stuff. Like, but like they just kind of like perfected the fucking like 3 margaritas like style of food, where it's like all northern style Mexican food, close to border scenarios. It's kind of like close to Tex-Mex, but not quite, you know. But it's like that scenario where it's like it's more standardized in how they've done it, you know, and that's just where most of the Mexican food in the United States is that style. Because, you know, that's where most of the people come across the scenario, whereas, like, Mexicans and, like, you know, Baja and all that kind of stuff, they roll up into California and Arizona. New Mexico, those kind of, like, it's a little bit
so
different.
that's been an interesting...
It looks like Mexicali. Like, not really Mexican at all.
Right. But that's Mexicali. It's, like, California style, like, Mexican food, where it's, like, overabundance, and it's, like, you know, like, lots of flavors because, like, they had to stand out and that kind of stuff. Where it was different than just like, cool, we have our rice and beans and we have our normal food scenarios.
Have you watched the Taco documentary on Netflix?
I don't watch anything.
Taco documentary is pretty sweet. It's first person perspective, so the narrator is the taco.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there are 2 seasons of it, so it was good enough to get a 2nd season. But so the narrator is the taco, and it's as if they're telling their life story. So they go from the very beginning, and then they explain. Like,
that's an interesting way to go
made.
about that.
It's kind of cool.
But it's like, it's so over the top and so dramatized. Like, it's so melodramatic. It's almost like have you ever watched like a Mexican soap opera?
Yeah.
It's
Telenovas are fucking hilarious.
Yeah. So it's like that, where they're just like, it's so dramatized, where he's like, oh, and that's when the delicious juices like pour out. Oh my gosh, like I'm in heaven, like that kind of thing. It's good.
I mean, that's a cool way to do like a, you know, a docu-series on that scenario too, is like make it like, there's a big problem like for like, you know, especially when you were growing up, like documentaries were fucking boring. And like you just like, it was just basically the time like when you were in school, you just kind of spaced out on like whatever was going on.
The sub puts on.
Yeah,
like,
and
the
it's
teacher
like,
doesn't
this
give a
is
shit anymore.
stupid.
They're done with the
Like,
semester.
you're not learning anything from the deal.
Like the
Now there's a lot of information and those kind of
pull
things.
out the tech card or whatever with like the TV, big ass TV, and the VHS.
You see the TV on the stand in the corner. Like, fuck yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because you just, I would just go to sleep. I
Yeah,
didn't
you
give
know,
a fuck.
we're not doing anything today. Sit.
So I never learned any of that kind of stuff, and it's crazy because like, you know, I'm a reader. I like to read everything. How I'm doing this or figuring that out or whatever. Like I just try to read a lot, and so like those like moments where it's so fucking boring. Like just let me just put a book in front of me and like make me read it. But I know that's not how most people like would like to do that scenario.
I had a class with this shit teacher. He wouldn't let you fall. Like you had to stay awake. If you like even put your head down, he would come over. He had a. This is really fucked up, and he'd probably get fired for this now. I'm sure he's retired. He had an aluminum baseball bat.
I don't know what ding on the fucking on the.
There were desks that had like the edges snapped off, because he would, if you were sleeping, he'd walk up and he'd hit the desk next to you really hard to wake you up.
I remember this is in college even. I had this like 7 a.m. It was like my first like college class, and it was some like I don't even remember what it was. It was boring as fuck. I hated
Some
going
kind
there.
of like screener.
And
It's like-
so like I do the test and I crush it or whatever because that's always been like I hated like a homework scenario because I retain everything like immediately. So for me like school was very horrible because unless I had like a learning school or something that I had to do like in that like class, that was the only time that I really liked like school at all. Because I read something, I never took notes, or if I took notes, I'd never look at them again because it was already retained. So like tests were gravy for me. I just never liked doing the homework and all this. I was like, fuck this shit. But I remember like, so I'd crush all these tests, and luckily there was not a lot of homework for this. Like, you know, and the school that I went to was very like, it was kind of like high school extended. It was like the way the class structure worked. So like you had to be there and all this stuff, even if you were doing the work. You had like attendance, all this bullshit. And it was like, this is garbage. I'm fucking paying fucking $30,000 a year for this shit. I shouldn't have the fucking like, if I'm not paying attention, I'm not learning. What's the point as long as I get the shit done? Who cares? This way that I've like worked in school. I was like, if I'm doing the work and I know what I'm doing, what does it matter if I'm here or not? But like it was one of those classes like I literally like roll in there, you know, all the summertime, like all the stuff I was just doing whatever, and I literally just fucking pass out. Test would come, fucking crush it out, whatever it was. And the only mark I had on that class was like the reviews, like you had to like do like, you know, professor student reviews, and like the my student review was like, other than like, you know, sleeping in class, excellent student. I was like, that's pretty much exactly how this works. Like I did everything that I needed to fucking do. I didn't need to fucking be there.
So
Like
he's a
we're
good
like,
teacher. He didn't
and
care.
no, and she was a like.
She realized that.
Right, and she was a professor that I had like later for like I think it was for Adobe like Photoshop Suite, like the photo, like the whole studio, all of it, and then it was like a 3-hour class, and so I'd show up at like fucking like an hour and a half late, mow through whatever we were doing, and then leave. And then I got perfect grades because she's like, yeah, I don't really give a shit as long as you know what you're doing, and obviously you're not like cheating in the scenario. Like I come by and see you doing it. So it's not like I'm like, you know, worried about that you're not learning, or if you needed to learn the scenario, like here's your go, here's your fucking test. Like, you know, just crush it out, and like I show up an hour and a half late, everybody's like pissed, like what the fuck is this fucking kid doing? Just crush it out
Passing the
and
class.
just fucking leave. And
Fuckers.
it was great. It was one of those like great, like if school was like that where I could just like crush through what I needed to crush, and if I needed to learn something, then I would like pay attention and
I
learn
used
to it.
hate Amanda's classes that require like attendance or whatever. So fucking stupid.
It's fucking dumb, especially when you're paying for it.
There's
and if
no
you,
value. Like there's no value add for that.
Because and they know that those classes that you're required to attend, you're not getting anything out of that class. You know, it's not pushing you towards your goal of whatever
Well,
you're
there's
going to college
there's
for.
no real reason for attendance.
Right.
To be honest, like it doesn't. In high school it matters, but that's primarily because it's tied to funding. But in college it doesn't matter because you're paying for it.
Right.
So what does it matter if you show up to class? The teacher works for you. Depending on the type of school you go to,
Right.
the teacher works for you.
I agree. So I'm kind of done with that. It's kind of gross now. We've been going for like almost 3 hours now. So I think yeah.
We went up in viewers. We went down to 2 for a while.
Well, and that's actually not very accurate. I've learned over time.
It's really delayed. And
Yeah,
I mean, we
some.
haven't had I don't even know what time it is. I've been looking at that. The last message was at 10.
it's 11:45.
Yeah.
So 2 hours.
I mean, people like to watch it. That's kind of thing. Like, I get views on like people like I'll just get views and like there's no comments or
I'm a
anything.
little
and
nervous that the Australian kid never came back.
he never did. He might be in jail. We don't know at this point. Like,
Interpol showed up.
but I think
Some
we're
beans
gonna.
in his neighbor's yard. And
I think we're gonna cut it just because I don't want to have too long of fucking shows here. Because those like 4 or 5 hour ones, like if you get like when I have to watch them, it's like it's not draining because they're funny, but I also like I don't like hearing myself talk sometimes, and I talk a lot on this fucking show, so I'm like,
yeah.
shut the fuck up, dick. Like that's kind of like how that works. But I think I'm. Yeah, that's good.
Fish sounds really good right now.
All right. We'll see you next week. It's the it's first Friday of March or May. But let's go back in time. It's fine. Yeah, we'll see you next week. I don't think I have anybody special next week that I have planned. So Sarah was supposed to be here. I don't.
Cool.
Saying Travis isn't special.
No,
No.
I'm here every week.
It doesn't make you